The life of a ninja beginning in the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176 Method. Yagura, who was a little scared, immediately withdrew his mind from the sealed space and opened his eyes in the dark cave. It was pitch black in front of him, and he couldn't see his hand in front of his face. There was only a light at the entrance of the cave not far away, which made him feel that he had not been isolated from the world. Freedom, freedom. Looking at the light at the entrance of the cave, he remembered what Sanwei had just said. For Sanwei, his body was like this dark cave, which restricted his freedom and prevented him from going out. But as long as he passed this observation period, he could leave here, return to the Hidden Mist Village, and regain his freedom. But for Sanwei, its prison sentence was his age. When he died, if he didn't find a suitable next Jinkriki, Sanwei might be raised somewhere in the Hidden Mist Village and leave his small cage. But if he found a candidate for the next Jinkriki, what awaits Sanwei will be another long prison sentence. Although being raised by people is not much better, it is better than being trapped in a small sealed space, repeating the dark days day after day, year after year. Thinking of this, Yagura held his heart and sighed. Compared to me, it is really pitiful. Then, he seemed to have made a decision in his heart, exhaled a long breath, closed his eyes again, concentrated his mind and calmed his breath, and sank his consciousness into the deepest part of his heart. Why are you here again? The three-tailed beast tied up by the electric light chain looked at the boy who appeared in the sealed space and asked impatiently. Unlike this child, who couldn't stand loneliness, it had learned to endure loneliness in its hundreds of years of life. It didn't want to communicate with people urgently because of loneliness. I've decided. I want to give you freedom. Yagura pointed at the bound beast and said in high spirits. The three-tailed beast was stunned. It didn't quite believe its ears. It felt that it might have heard it wrong. This young human actually wanted to give itself freedom. Hearing the doubt in the Sanwei's tone, Yagura once again swore loudly. I said, I will give you freedom. Let you return to nature and live freely. This time, Sanwei heard clearly that Yagura said he would set it free. After a short silence, the sealed space was filled with Sanwei's arrogant laughter. Why, you don't believe me? Hearing the disdain in Sanwei's laughter, Yagura questioned angrily. Sanwei did not answer, but continued to laugh. The laughter lasted for a long time, until it laughed itself out of breath, and then stopped. Set me free. Who do you think you are? You can't even become a Jinkriki. How can you be qualified to set me free? Staring at the boy with his only remaining one eye, Sanwei mocked unceremoniously. Yagura blushed, but he couldn't find a reason to refute. He wanted to set Sanwei free, but he sympathized with the other party's experience and was too excited for a moment, and he didn't consider the specific operation plan at all. At this moment, he was stumped by the question of the three tails. When he became a Jinkriki, he had no choice, and after becoming a Jinkriki, he still had no choice. Because he knew very well the significance of the Jinkriki to the village. Even if he left this cave and returned to the Hidden Mist Village, he could not leave the village at will. It was just a change from a small prison to a large prison. In essence, there were not many changes. His fate was never in his own control. A guy who couldn't even control himself actually wanted to help others. No wonder the three tails would laugh at him. Moreover, the tailed beast was an important strategic weapon of the village. Even if he agreed to open the seal and release the three tails, the Hidden Mist Village would not agree. He was not qualified to decide whether the three tails stayed or left. Kid, instead of thinking about setting me free, you might as well think about how to dominate your life from the hands of the Hidden Mist Village. The three tails laughed loudly again. It seemed that its laughter stimulated the boy's self-esteem. Yagura blushed and continued to argue. How do you know that I can't control my own life? How do you know that I can't set you free? As long as. At this point, he had a vague answer in his mind, but he couldn't say the second half of the sentence. His thoughts seemed to be frozen, and he was just a little bit away from coming up with a solution to everything. Don't say as long as. The three-tailed beast glanced at him with great disdain and continued, I've seen too many bragging brats like you. After all, you're just a hot-blooded guy. You'd better leave here quickly, and don't disturb my sleep. Maybe the old guy, the third Mizukage, will come to see you again. Mizukage? Hearing it mention the name of Mizukage, a flash of inspiration flashed through Yagura's mind, and the vague answer finally became clear. I have a way. He shouted happily. HMM. Seeing the boy's sudden excitement, the three-tailed beast was surprised and asked curiously, what do you have in mind? Yagura put one hand on his waist and pointed at the giant beast that was close at hand and said proudly, I have a way to control my own destiny and set you free. Ah. The three-tailed beast was stunned for a moment and said in doubt, are you kidding? It's good enough for the Jinkriki to have a certain degree of freedom. You actually want to control your own life and let me go? It's just a foolish dream. As far as it knows, the degree of control of the Jinkriki on the mainland over the power of the tailed beasts determines their degree of freedom. Those unlucky people who are completely unable to suppress the chakra of the tailed beasts can only be imprisoned and isolated forever. After all, no one wants to live with such a guy who goes berserk and out of control from time to time. Even if the 8-tailed Jinkriki of the Hidden Cloud Village can perfectly control the power of the tailed beasts, they cannot escape the surveillance activities of the Hidden Cloud Village and are helpless. Yagura's attempt to control his own life is simply a joke. As for releasing the tailed beasts, this is even more nonsense. Ever since someone discovered that they could seal the tailed beasts and create a Jinkriki to harness the power of the tailed beasts, all the forces on the continent have regarded the tailed beasts as an indispensable force. They have fought against each other, and even many wars have broken out for this. So far, there has never been an example of a tailed beast being released on its own initiative. Yagura's words really made it hard to convince him. You don't trust me? Seeing that the three-tailed beast was still mocking, Yagura raised his head and said unconvincedly, as long as I become the Mizukage, who dares to restrict my freedom? I want to let you go. Who dares to stop me? What if they really dare to stop me? I will let you go quietly. At the end, Yagura's voice weakened, not as firm as at the beginning. If he becomes the Mizukage, no one will dare to restrict his freedom, but the three-tailed beast means something extraordinary to the Hidden Mist Village. Even if he becomes the Mizukage, I'm afraid he can't force the three-tailed beast to be released, based on the words of one person. This matter can only be done secretly. Sorry, I was applying pesticides last night. I slept a little late. Chapter 177 Assistance. Mizukage? Just you? Hahaha. The mocking voice of the three-tailed beast once again flooded the entire sealed space. Why, don't you believe I can become a Mizukage? Facing the rough laughter of the giant beast, Yagura shouted at the top of his voice. Little one. The three-tailed beast stopped laughing, stared at the boy with his one eye, and couldn't help laughing and said, just relying on your small body, you want to sit on the position of Mizukage. I'm afraid those bloodthirsty guys in the Hidden Mist Village will cut you into pieces on the spot. You'd better save your energy. As he said that, it shook his head. In terms of strength, Yagura is just a mere Chunin level. Even if the Hidden Mist Village suffered heavy losses in this war, it is not so bad that there is not even a Jonin left, and such a Chunin level kid is in charge of the position of Mizukage. In terms of qualifications, Yagura is only a teenager, still a child. Except for his childhood playmates and classmates, the entire Hidden Mist Village probably doesn't know many people at all. He was not familiar with any of the core figures in charge of various departments, let alone any friendship. It was a joke to want to take the position of Mizukage. Who said I can't be Mizukage? As long as I become the strongest person in Kirigakure, according to the rules set by the first generation, I will be the Mizukage. Yagura argued loudly with a red face. Rules. Hearing this, Sanwei was stunned for a moment, and then recalled it carefully, and said slowly, it seems that there is such a rule. When the first Mizukage was in power, it was already imprisoned in Kirigakure. Therefore, Sanwei knew more about Kirigakure than any other Kirigakure. The first Mizukage, Hakyun, the old man, formulated a series of killing rules, including the one that only the strongest person in Kirigakure can inherit the position of Mizukage. As a result, every time the Mizukage was replaced, there would be a bloody storm. The Kirigakure ninjas fought for the position of Mizukage by force. The final winner is naturally the most powerful mist ninja, and the title of Mizukage is well deserved. Not only that, such a rule has also led to the habitual trend of assassinating Mizukage. After all, as long as you kill the current Mizukage, it proves that you are stronger than the current Mizukage and more qualified to be the Mizukage. Therefore, every year in the Hidden Mist Village, there are 1 or 2 guys who try to assassinate the Mizukage, and finally become corpses under the feet of the Mizukage. Of course, such guys who don't know their own strength are only individual cases. After all, when each Mizukage ascends to the throne, he has almost killed all the competitors, and the rest are also killed in fear, and have no dissatisfaction. However, every time the Mizukage is replaced, there is such a big killing, which also leads to extremely serious internal friction in the Hidden Mist Village. The cutting-edge combat power is very lacking. However, in terms of your current strength, I'm afraid that, even if you practice for another 10 years, you will not be able to become the strongest in the Hidden Mist Village. Looking at the angry boy, Sanwei shook his head again. Hearing this, Yagura's face suddenly fell. There is nothing wrong with becoming the Mizukage as the strongest ninja in the Hidden Mist Village. But the problem lies in how to become the strongest ninja in the Hidden Mist Village. Training is certainly a way to become stronger. But training is part of the daily life of all ninjas. He does not have a training method that overwhelms everyone else. On this road, he has no leading advantage. With just normal training methods, he can't become the strongest Hidden Mist ninja. He needs to find another way to become stronger quickly. While Yagura was silent, Sanwei was thinking over and over again about what the other party had said before. Freedom is too tempting for it. It is looking forward to this day all the time. If Yagura is really willing to let it go free, it doesn't mind helping Yagura to ascend to the position of Mizukage. Because it has a way in its hand that can make Yagura become the top strongman in the ninja world in a short time. You said you want to let me go free, is this true? It asked, staring at the boy's eyes. He tried his best to see some clues from the other's eyes, and on the other hand, he silently prayed that the other's sincerity was all true. Of course it's true. Yagura replied without hesitation. That firm gaze, without any wavering. His heart was calm, without any distractions. The three-tailed beast truly felt the sincerity of this human Jinriki. The other party really wanted to set it free. Okay. It nodded and whispered, as long as you promise to set me free, after becoming the Mizukage, I will help you to become the strongest in the Hidden Mist Village, and ascend to the position of Mizukage. Really? Yagura was a little confused by this sudden good news. After a short period of excitement, he regained his sanity, and curled his lips and said, you are lying. I don't believe you can make me the strongest in the Hidden Mist Village. You little brat. Seeing that he doubted his ability, the three-tailed beast was depressed. But it changed its mind and felt relieved. Yagura had not been a Jinriki for long, and he was still a child in his teens, so he had very little knowledge of the tailed beasts and Jinriki. It was understandable that he did not understand how the tailed beasts helped the Jinriki to quickly improve their strength. Then, he explained helplessly, the Jinriki has the chakra of the tailed beasts sealed in their bodies. As long as they improve their ability to control the chakra of the tailed beasts, they can quickly improve their own strength. So, as long as I release the restrictions on chakra and give you my chakra, you can become one of the strongest in the ninja world in a short time. Yagura was puzzled and said, but, I feel that your chakra is not particularly powerful. As he said, he stretched out his right hand, and a layer of foamy red chakra slowly emerged in his palm. With such chakra, he really couldn't see what was so powerful about it. The three tails glared at him fiercely and said angrily, the little chakra you control is not even as much as one of my toes. If it is of any use, then there will be no miracle. Then it solemnly warned Yagura, listen carefully, the most terrifying thing about the Jinriki is not how exquisite the moves using chakra are, but because of the constant supply and protection of chakra from the tailed beasts, they can become tireless war machines. As long as I release the restrictions on your chakra, you will have almost unlimited chakra. With you like this, even if you keep delaying, you can tire most of your opponents. In the entire Hidden Mist Village, there are less than 5 people who can be your enemy. Becoming a Mizukage is just around the corner. Hearing this, Yagura looked at the bound giant beast with admiration and exclaimed, "Wow, so powerful." Of course, otherwise how could the Jinkriki be valued so much by the major forces? The three-tailed fox snorted twice and then said, "If you want to get my help, you must agree to my conditions and set me free after becoming the Mizukage." Yagura frowned and thought for a while, then shook his head and said, "No." Chapter 178 Rules. Hearing this, the three-tailed beast narrowed its single eye and questioned word by word, "Do you want to go back on your word?" It felt that it might have been teased, but it did not sense any deception from Yagura's heart, which really confused it. "I don't want to go back on my word." Yagura raised his head, looked at the bound giant beast, scratched his head and smiled. "I heard that once the tailed beast is stripped, the Jinkriki will die. Look, I'm only 14 years old this year. There are enough delicious food outside, and there are not enough fun toys to play with. If you leave immediately after helping me become the Mizukage, then won't I be able to enjoy this colorful life anymore?" Hearing this, the three-tailed beast suddenly felt that its IQ was not enough. After all this time, people are actually worried about this? It caused it a false alarm. "As long as you keep your promise and remember to set me free, I don't mind waiting for a while until you are about to die and have no attachment to this world and then leave your body." Looking at the smirking boy, the three-tailed beast said seriously, "Is this okay? Maybe you'll have to wait a long time." Yagura was surprised and then asked shyly, "No problem." Sanwi shook his head gently and the electric chains on his body shook for a while and continued, "So many years have passed, I don't need this little time. You can enjoy your life. I just hope you don't forget your promise." It solemnly reminded the boy again. "Okay." Yagura nodded and replied seriously, "As long as you help me become the Mizukage, I will let you go when the time is right." On the other side, Nana Qishuang, who had just completed her daily training, was walking home comfortably. Rather than calling it a home, it would be more appropriate to call it an apartment. In addition to this body, his early deceased parents left him nothing, and there was naturally no real estate. This new home was allocated to him by the Kirigakure village after he retired from the front line. After all, with his current age and status, it would not be appropriate to return to the orphanage. And the higher-ups would not let him, an elite chunin, be homeless and sleep on the streets. After he inquired, he found out that the original owner of the house was also a ninja, but he had died on the front line. In addition, there was no heir, so the property became ownerless. So he was arranged to live here. In fact, there are many ownerless properties like this. After the members of those big families died in the war, even if there was no one to inherit, there would be a family to reclaim it, and the Hidden Mist village could not intervene. But even so, after getting rid of this part of people, the Hidden Mist village can control a lot of ownerless properties, and it is not a difficult task to arrange for a guy like him who is alone. After all, compared with the number of ownerless properties, orphans like him who have nothing are really rare. Or in other words, it is a miracle that he can survive to this day on a battlefield full of corpses. In his memory, half of the children in the orphanage, who were about the same age as him, died in the examination room for the graduation exam, and most of the half who successfully passed the exam became cannon fodder on the battlefield. It is really unique to be able to survive to this day like him. You know, even those ninjas from big families, who have received elite education since childhood, and have much better basic qualities than them, have a low survival rate on the battlefield. And it is a miracle that these orphans who have only received basic ninja education can survive until now. ZHI. As soon as he opened the door, he felt a strange breath. That was Murderous Aura. He has become a veteran on the battlefield, and is very sensitive to murderous auras. He believes that he will never misjudge. Someone sneaked into his house in advance and prepared to attack him. I remember that I don't seem to have offended anyone recently. Standing at the door without going in, he pinched his chin and thought for a while. Moreover, the other party was so bold that he dared to kill people in the Hidden Mist village. Wait, Hidden Mist village? He seemed to remember something. Killing is not prohibited in the Hidden Mist village, but there are strict restrictions on killing. Ninjas cannot attack civilians. This is the most basic rule. Otherwise, it will cause panic among the grassroots people. A group of ninjas who even kill their own people. If there is no such rule to constrain them, how can the residents of the Hidden Mist village dare to live with them? In addition, there is the system of killing and promotion. While the Hidden Mist village creates ruthless ninjas through killing, there is another meaning in it. That is to create strong people through this kind of killing, like raising poisons. Force is respected. The ninja world is originally a world with extraordinary power. In such a world, personal force is naturally respected. In the Hidden Mist village, this idea of force is respected is even more so. For example, the position of Mizukage requires the strongest mist ninja to take up, which is one of them. The implication is that the person who kills the Mizukage can be the next Mizukage. Even the position of Mizukage can be obtained through killing, let alone the rest. The ninja graduation exam they experienced earlier is one of them. To become a formal ninja, you just need to kill another candidate. However, because of Zabuza's killing spree, the top management saw the risk of shaking the foundation, so they had to forcibly change the graduation killing system. But they did not change the other killing rules. If nothing unexpected happened, he was facing the Kirigakure ninja who was going to kill him according to another rule. The killing rule for the promotion of Chunin. If a genin wants to be promoted to Chunin, he needs to prove that he has the ability of Chunin. In the Kirigakure, which advocates killing, there is no cumbersome examination system like Konoha. They only have one word, kill. A genin only needs to kill 3 Chunins to prove that he has the ability of Chunin. The same is true for the promotion system of Jonin. A Chunin only needs to kill 3 Jonins to prove that he has the ability of Jonin. Then he is a Jonin. But in this way, the Kirigakure ninjas will kill in Kirigakure for their own promotion, creating chaos and shaking the foundation of the village. In order to stabilize the Kirigakure, the first generation of Mizukage added additional regulations on this basis. The killing promotion system, killing one enemy can be equivalent to 3 of your own. In other words, if a genin wants to be promoted to Chunin, he only needs to kill 3 Chunins from other villages, but if it is Chunins from the Hidden Mist village, 9 are needed. Based on such a rule, most people will no longer choose their own people to do it. It is naturally more cost effective to choose ninjas from other villages. In this way, the first Mizukage directed the spearhead of this killing to other villages, which can not only encourage the ninjas of the village to kill the enemy, but also maintain the operation of the killing system. However, even with this 1-4-3 rule, there are still some crazy people with abnormal brain circuits who will attack their own people. I think the one who lurked in his house is one of them. Chapter 179 Madman. After thinking through all these, he rubbed his temple helplessly, sighed and said, I have found you, no need to hide anymore. As he said that, he reached out and pressed the button by the door, and the dark house suddenly lit up with dazzling lights. Although he did not see any figure inside, Qishuang clearly felt that the looming murderous aura had not subsided. He noticed that the other party had not left. Then, he scratched the back of his head in distress and said, this is my home. I don't want you to mess it up. Since you insist on fighting with me, let's go to a more open place. I'll wait for you outside. As he said that, he pressed the button, turned off the lights in the house, closed the door, and then fell into the alley outside in a few steps. The house where he lived was not particularly remote, but it was not particularly busy. There were no pedestrians in the alley at this time, and it was very quiet, which was very convenient for him to fight with others. After waiting for about 3 minutes, seeing that Qishuang did not return, the mist ninja lurking in the house finally believed that his hiding place had been exposed. Then, he opened the door and walked out slowly. Are you ready to face death if you attack me? Qishuang said as he looked at the strange mist ninja who slowly walked out of his house. It was a boy, slightly younger than him, and it was estimated that he should be a ninja who graduated after him. Or in other words, it should be a ninja who graduated this year. After all, almost all ninjas who graduated before this year have been on the front line, and they have many opportunities to come into contact with enemy ninjas. If they want to be promoted through killing, they don't need to attack their own people. Half a year ago, the front line had ceased fighting in preparation for negotiations. Only the ninjas who graduated this year have fewer opportunities to come into contact with enemy ninjas, so they will attack their own people without hesitation. The boy held the kunai, stared at Qishuang, and smiled cruelly. Don't blame me, blame those bastards who stopped fighting. I had already killed 2 Konoha Chunins, and I only needed 1 more to be promoted to Chunin. Who knew they would stop fighting at this time and transfer our team back? Without the conditions of the battlefield, I don't know when I can get 3 Chunins to be promoted. It just so happens that your home is close to me, so I can use you to make up the number. I just need to kill you and find 2 Chunin level Miss Ninjas, and I can be promoted to Chunin. As he said that, he licked the blade of the kunai, and the cruel and morbid smile on his face was clearly visible. Another madman who enjoys killing. Seeing this, Qishuang shook his head helplessly. Killing, this act of depriving life, is against human ethics, and most people don't like it. Even ninjas often deprive lives, but they still have normal life values and don't enjoy killing. There are not many people like him who get pleasure from killing. But in the atmosphere of Kirigakure that encourages killing, the proportion of such people is much higher than that of other places. Especially those young children, whose minds are not mature enough, can easily become such lunatics under the killing atmosphere of Kirigakure. This is the 3rd one he has seen. As for the first 2, they died on the battlefield. After all, such lunatics are to hated on the battlefield. I'll give you 3 seconds to leave, and I can pretend that nothing happened today. Otherwise, you can leave your life. Looking at the boy opposite, Qishuang advised calmly. One of the killing rules of Kirigakure, in the face of personal attacks, every Kirigakure has the right to self-defense, and counterattack is not a crime. Because the other party took the initiative to come to the door, Qishuang can kill the other party without scruples. But even if he killed countless enemies on the battlefield, he has never really attacked his own people. The opponent is too young, no more than 10 years old, and has a long life ahead of him. He should not die so young. At the moment, the opponent has not launched an attack yet, and there is still a chance to stop. Otherwise, once they really fight, he will never let such an enemy who tries to kill him go. He is not a Buddha who sacrifices himself to feed the tiger, and he does not have the compassionate heart to persuade people to be good. He will not let go of any guy who has bad intentions towards him, especially in this case of counterattack without guilt. The boy sneered twice, and then said, "It's too troublesome to find another target. I still want to kill you more. I can't wait to be promoted to Chunin." As he said, he quickly formed a set of hand seals, and launched an offensive. Water style, cutting rain. Then, a light rain fell from the sky. At the same time, after noticing that the water attributed chakra on the opponent's body rose to the sky, Qishuang also quickly used a ninjutsu. Although his movements were a bit slower than the other, his seal making speed was obviously faster. Ice style, ice wall. When the raindrops were approaching, an ice wall grew rapidly from behind him, and then folded down on top of his head, immediately blocking the raindrops from the sky. Although he didn't know what the opponent's technique was, and it didn't seem to have any lethality, Qishuang still didn't think of rashly engaging it. After all, there were many very confusing ninjutsu like his needle rain technique. If he capsized in the gutter, it would be too late to regret. Humph. Naive. The boy sneered and rushed over immediately with the kunai. His technique, which was like a drizzle, was naturally not an ordinary water style, but a special secret technique that had the ability to dissolve all ninjutsu. As long as the target was covered by this drizzle, all the opponent's ninjutsu would be dissipated by this drizzle. In other words, the opponent could not perform ninjutsu in this rain. To be precise, he could not perform ninjutsu that could be touched by this drizzle. It was with this secret technique that he managed to kill 2 Konoha Chunins on the battlefield. On the other side, looking at the boy rushing up, Qishuang's heart was not moved at all. It was difficult for him to get excited about fighting with an opponent like this. Ding. He stood quietly in place, took out a kunai, and blocked the attack. At the same time, he felt something dripping on his head. He used a little force to force the opponent away, and then looked up, only to see that the ice barrier that originally blocked his head had been riddled with holes, and the continuous drizzle was dripping on his head through those small holes. Corrosive rain? He immediately had a guess in his heart. No, that's not right. Then, he denied his guess, because the raindrops falling on him did not cause any corrosive damage. It's cancelling out. He was careful and immediately found that his chakra remaining in the ice was slowly being offset by another chakra in the rain. It was also because of this that the nature of the ice was destroyed and the ice layer was damaged. Otherwise, it would be impossible to destroy his ice barrier with such a continuous drizzle. Vote for the recommendation, everyone. Chapter 180 Instant Kill. How is it? Are you surprised? The little boy who was forced away by the blow stood in the rain and shouted proudly, "You can also try other ninjutsu. Maybe you can find a ninjutsu that is not afraid of my drizzle." As long as the opponent continues to use ninjutsu unwillingly, he can use the characteristics of the cut rain melting ninjutsu to kill the man. Successfully promoted to a glorious chunin. No need. Looking at the ice wall slowly collapsing in the drizzle, Qishuang replied expressionlessly, "If your ability is only this, then you can go on your way with peace of mind." Raindrops slowly rolled down his black hair and ripped on the kunai, making a slight echo. Then, he pinched his fingers, and the crackling sound from the knuckles was particularly clear in the rain. Seeing that he was so calm, as if he had completely taken advantage of him, the boy felt an inexplicable anger and roared, "It's not certain who will send whom to the road." After that, he rushed up again with the kunai. He was expecting that the opponent would use ninjutsu again, and when he found it was futile and showed a flaw, he would be able to kill him in one fell swoop. Choosing me as your target is the most wrong decision in your life. Qishuang shook his head, flashed, and rushed over. Because of the enemy's technique, it would be difficult to use ninjutsu again, and using physical skills was the most appropriate means. But not using ninjutsu does not mean that his physical skills will lose to the opponent. With his bloody fighting experience on the battlefield over the years, he could never lose to such a kid. What's more, he is a kid who is close to the level of chunin. With the help of an instant of explosive speed, he immediately crashed into the arms of his opponent. How can it be so fast? The little boy widened his eyes in horror when he noticed that there was suddenly another person in his arms. He didn't even react, and the opponent was already sticking to him. Such a speed has long surpassed the chunin level ninja, and even approached the jonin. It is very likely that this is a jonin who has not yet been promoted. Then, he felt a sharp pain in his chest, and then he saw the opponent elbow him closely, knocking him away expressionlessly. At the same time, he also saw a bloody kunai in the opponent's hand. The bright red blood was slowly dripping from the tip, splashing a tiny red flower on the ground, and then mixed with the rain and disappeared. Boom. The little boy was knocked away by Qishuang's elbow, hit a wall, and fell down the wall. However, on the snow-white wall, where the little boy slid down the wall, there was a glaring red mark. It was stained red by the little boy's blood. At the moment, when Qishuang rushed into his arms, he pierced his chest with a kunai. He had completely chosen the wrong opponent. The huge difference in speed between the two sides was enough to determine the winner in an instant. The drizzle stopped, and the little boy fell down at the foot of the wall, his clothes stained red with blood. He slowly raised his head, looked at the boy who was approaching slowly, and asked in a hoarse voice, You are a jonin?" Qishuang walked up to him and squatted gently, then used the bloody kunai to slash the boy's throat. "No, I should be considered a special jonin." With the slight tearing sound of flesh, he instantly cut the other's throat. Completely cut off the other's last ray of life. "So that's how it is." Hearing his answer, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and the little boy closed his eyes helplessly. With his dream of being promoted to a chunin, he fell into darkness completely. Although the battle between the two lasted only a few minutes, the fluctuations of the battle had already alarmed the surrounding residents. Some residents immediately reported to the patrolling Mist Ninja law enforcement team, and soon a team of Mist Ninjas arrived at the scene of the accident. However, the battle was over. The boy lying at the base of the wall seemed to be beyond saving, and the other slightly older boy, holding a bloody kunai, stood aside, thinking that he should be the creator of this killing. Then, the Mist Ninjas immediately surrounded him. Then, the one who seemed to be the leader came out and asked the boy holding the bloody kunai, "Who are you? Why are you here? Who killed the person on the ground?" After wiping the blood off the kunai blade, Nanashiro replied calmly, "My name is Nanashiro, and I'm a chunin. The reason I'm here is because he challenged me to a fight. As he said that, he turned around and pointed at the boy on the ground and continued. He said he was still short of a killing quota to be promoted to Chunin, so he wanted to fight me. As for the result, you all saw it. I'll live, he dies. After saying that, he shrugged helplessly. He was not worried at all about the interrogation of the law enforcement mist ninjas. Because the hidden mist village did not prohibit killing, as long as the killing was not done without reason, there would be no trouble. What's more, this fight was provoked by the other party, so he didn't have to worry about being punished at all. Killing to be promoted again. Looking at him, and the boy on the ground, the leading mist ninja curled his lips helplessly, and finally understood the general situation of this battle. As law enforcement mist ninjas, their mission is to maintain the public order of the entire Kirigakure village. They are already accustomed to such battles and murders caused by killings for promotion. Every month, there are always a few unlucky people in Kirigakure village who die at the hands of their own people, and they only need to verify whether these murders are in compliance with the law. As for those who are not in compliance, they will naturally be punished for the crime of disturbing public order. Then, he gestured to his partner behind him and ordered, according to the old rules, carry that unlucky guy back to verify his identity, and then see if he has reported the promotion to the higher-ups, and confirm the legality of this battle and killing. Yes. 2 Kirigakure ninjas came out in response, hastily cleaned up the boy's body, and quickly took him away. Then, the leading law enforcement mist ninja looked business-like, and told the other party, Nana Frost Chunin, please do not leave the hidden mist village at will, before we verify the legality of your killing this time. Otherwise, we will regard you as a wanton killer and completely deny the legality of your killing this time. Deal with them as traitors. Nana Frost immediately saluted solemnly and said, thank you for your reminder, sir. The leading law enforcement mist ninja waved his hand and said impatiently, we still have patrol missions, so we won't delay here. Remember to deal with the bloodstains there so as not to scare ordinary people. As he said that, he pointed to the wall where the little boy fell before, and then led the mist ninjas to quickly leave the alley. When the group of people completely disappeared, Nana Frost took a look at the bloodstains on the wall and sighed helplessly. Oh, what a trouble. Then, he put away the kunai in his hand and slowly walked towards his house. Shadow versus more fun. Playing too much pesticide can easily cause irritation and affect sleep. Chapter 181 heard. After verifying the identity of the deceased, the law enforcement department of the Mist Ninja also quickly confirmed the fact that the other party applied for the promotion of killing. Therefore, it was determined that Ninashiro was not guilty of killing in self-defense. A killing incident was so easily eliminated. Only the residents near Ninashiro remembered it vaguely. However, the residents who have lived in the hidden mist village for many years have long been accustomed to this kind of killing. For them, encountering a dead mist ninja in an alley from time to time is just like chickens and ducks being slaughtered in the vegetable market. There is nothing special about it. It is simply a common thing. There is a high pressure protection policy arranged by the hidden mist village. Even if they live in the same village as the hidden mist ninja, everyone seems to live in two worlds. They can completely turn a blind eye to the brutal fighting between the hidden mist ninjas. Even the bolder guys dare to hide quietly and watch, using it as a topic of conversation after dinner. In this way, the people of the entire hidden mist village live in a strange and morbid environment. On the other hand, until the armistice agreement was signed, the third Mizukage finally had some free time and came to the small island in the middle of the lake outside the village again. This was the place where Yagura was monitoring. The situation of the Jinkriki was extremely important. He needed to check it from time to time and then make reasonable arrangements based on the actual situation of the Jinkriki. The Six Tails had already disappointed him. It was a failed Jinkriki. The control over the tailed beasts was extremely limited. The village needed to spend a lot of energy monitoring them and even be ready to suppress them at all times. Fortunately, Yagura's situation looked much better. The last time they met, Yagura had already been able to initially control part of the power of the tailed beasts. At this time, nearly half a year had passed. If nothing unexpected happened, Yagura's control over the three tails should be much stronger than that of the six tails Jinkriki. Someone is coming. In the dark cave, the three tails reported to Yagura, who was meditating and resting. In his heart, The huge size of the tailed beasts was not for show. The huge size meant that their strength, speed, and perception were much stronger than humans. Even though they do not have professional perception abilities, the powerful basic perception brought by their huge size is stronger than that of ordinary perception ninjas. Therefore, the moment the barrier outside the cave opened, it noticed that someone had come in. Who is it? Yagura asked curiously in his heart, slowly opening his eyes. It's the old guy of the third Mizukage. He came to see you. Sanwei replied in a bad tone. It really couldn't treat the guy who sealed it twice in a row with a normal heart. If it hadn't made a fair agreement with Yagura, it would even want to take advantage of Yagura's release of body control authority to crush the old guy. It turned out to be him. Yagura sighed. Then, a series of tiny footsteps were heard outside the cave. Then, with two flames, a man wearing a bamboo hat, under the protection of two Miss Ninjas, walked slowly over. How are you doing recently? The third generation smiled and asked the boy who had just stood up. It feels good. Yagura replied casually, then picked up the stick-like weapon next to him, jumped up, aimed at the head of the man in the bamboo hat, and chopped it down fiercely. Yagura, you dare. Seeing the young man suddenly attack, the two Miss Ninja guards were shocked and hurriedly threw away the torches in their hands, ready to parry the opponent's attack. Unfortunately, they were still a step too late. Red chakra covered Yagura's arms, and then the two arms composed of tailed beast chakra, holding the stick-like weapon, suddenly grew a lot and instantly reached the top of the Mizukage's head. Just when the hearts of the two guards were in their throats, the stick-like weapon stopped at a position 1 inch away from the bamboo hat, as if it was welded with fine iron, and it didn't move. But the strong wind stirred by the weapon did not stop, blowing the curtains on both sides of the bamboo hat. People can't help but wonder if the Mizukage would still be alive if that blow fell. What a fast speed. The Mizukage looked up at the weapon hanging above his head in the red chakra hand and exclaimed, have you controlled the power of the three tails to this extent? This attack, both in terms of power and speed, far exceeded that of half a year ago. At the same time, the two guards finally caught up. They grabbed the weapon hanging above the Mizukage's head and immediately wanted to move the dangerous object away. They thought it would be difficult, but they never thought that it was easily moved away from the Mizukage's head, which was really unexpected. Why don't you hide? Taking the opportunity to retract the chakra hand, Yagura looked at the third generation quietly and asked, didn't you really do it? The third generation narrowed his eyes and smiled. Previously, he did not feel the murderous intent from Yagura, nor did he feel the frenzy of the tailed beast, so he judged that Yagura's attack was just a test. If I hadn't stopped just now, you would have been dead. Carrying the retracted stick-like weapon, Yagura rolled his eyes and said to him, then, who knows? The third generation still narrowed his eyes and said, Yagura's attack was indeed very fast, but it was not enough to kill him just by that. Even though his health was deteriorating, he was not a weakling who could be killed easily. Ahem. He covered his mouth and coughed twice, then asked the boy again, you are very skilled in using the chakra of the tailed beast. To what extent have you controlled the power of the three tail? If I tell you that I can completely control the power of the three tail, would you believe it? Yagura replied with a smug look on his face, raising the corners of his mouth. What? The third Mizukage immediately stopped smiling, with a look of doubt on his face. The two Miss Ninja guards next to him doubted their ears, wondering if they had heard it wrong. Are you telling the truth? The Mizukage confirmed again solemnly. Yeah. Yagura nodded, like a child showing off a new toy, and said happily, I have talked to Isabu. As long as I fulfill one of its wishes, it will willingly lend its power to me. It will no longer deliberately make trouble, try to fight for the control of my body, and bring harm to everyone. The real name of the three-tailed beast is Isabu. In order to leave this ghost place as soon as possible, he and Isabu had discussed it. When he becomes more proficient in controlling the chakra of the tailed beast, he will spread the news that he can completely control the power of the three-tailed beast. In this way, the top leaders of the Kirigakure will release him from his imprisonment. Although it is not difficult to break the outer barrier with the power of the three-tailed beast, such a rough action will undoubtedly cause misunderstandings in the Kirigakure. At that time, it is inevitable to suffer. It is better to behave properly and leave according to normal procedures. But now that the third Mizukage has taken the initiative to come to the door, he doesn't want to wait any longer and directly informs the other party of the situation. I hope to leave here early. As for the use of the chakra of the tailed beast, I can go out and practice slowly. Chapter 180 to candidate. Very good, very good. Ha 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 ha. Cough cough cough. After listening to the boy's story, the third generation suddenly raised his head and laughed. But it seemed that it was due to physical reasons, or he laughed so hard that he was out of breath. He just laughed halfway and started coughing violently. The face under the firelight also became a little paler. My lord, are you okay? Picking up the torch again, a guard hurriedly patted the back of the Mizukage. The other person was still staring at Yagura nervously. It's okay, it's okay. The third generation waved his hands and coughed while covering his mouth. I'm fine, I'm just too happy. I didn't control my emotions for a while. Yagura's words meant that the three-tailed beast would no longer be hostile to the Kirigakure, and there would be no danger of going out of control. And Yagura himself also gained the recognition of the three-tailed beast and the help of the three-tailed beast, becoming another perfect Jinkriki after the eight-tailed beast and the two-tailed beast of Qimogakure. The Kirigakure village therefore obtained a tailed beast weapon that can be truly controlled. A super strong man who can determine the overall situation at a critical moment, instead of a time bomb that needs to be suppressed and supervised from time to time. Especially in the current situation of Kirigakure, the appearance of Yagura, a perfect Jinkriki, has solved his urgent needs and has a profound significance. At present Kirigakure's war against Konoha has completely ended, but Kirigakure village has not gained any advantage, but has suffered heavy losses. In particular, the strongest force he controls, the 7 ninja swordsmen, has died or escaped, leaving only a watermelon mountain pufferfish ghost, which can be said to be completely annihilated. Unfortunately, there are also undercurrents in Kirigakure village. Although the rebellion launched by the reformists has been suppressed, the hidden dangers have been planted as early as the beginning of the first generation of the village, and cannot be completely eradicated. He can fully foresee that there will be more and more crazy and large-scale civil wars in the future. Kirigakure village is in a precarious situation in the rebellion. However, although he is willing to rectify it, his health is getting worse and worse. In addition, the strongest 7 ninja swordsmen in his hands are almost annihilated, and he has completely lost the ability to deter the people below. At present, it is very difficult to maintain the current ruling situation, so how can there be any power to deal with the rebellion? He can only watch and worry. What is more terrible is that as his health gets worse, the eyes of the people below him become more and more strange. He knows that everyone is coveting the position of Mizukage and wants to replace him. Earlier, because of the huge external pressure from the foreign war, the people below at least had some overall view, and did not directly shake his position of Mizukage like those rebels. But now, the war is over, the external pressure has dropped sharply, and the 7 ninja swordsmen have been destroyed. The day when everyone forces him to abdicate is not far away. What's more, except for the Iwagakure village ruled by the old stubborn Inoki, the 4th generation Kazukage of the Sand village has taken office, the 4th generation Reikage of the Cloud village has a candidate, and even the 3rd generation Hokage of Konoha is ready to abdicate. Among the 5 major villages, 3 villages have already had new leaders. Under this general trend, neither he nor the external factors allow him to continue to occupy the position of Mizukage. The change of the Mizukage position of the Hidden Mist village is just around the corner. Therefore, he urgently needs to find a powerful and suitable successor to the Mizukage. The appearance of Yagura, a perfect Jinkriki, just meets his requirements in the current situation of the Hidden Mist village. According to the rules of the Hidden Mist village, only the strongest can inherit the position of Mizukage. If there is not enough strength to subdue everyone, the successor will only face waves of challenges, causing the Hidden Mist village to cycle in the competition for the position of Mizukage. It is not even known whether it will fall apart because of this. Yagura, who has become a perfect Jinkriki, undoubtedly has the top strength of the entire ninja world. No one in the current Hidden Mist village can compete with him. He can completely calm the situation and avoid endless killings caused by the competition for the position of Mizukage. Although he is relatively young and may have some trouble handling government affairs, the entire Hidden Mist village does not rely entirely on the Mizukage to manage. With the assistance of many elders and powerful people in various departments, there should be no problem. Even because the other party is young, he is very malleable, and everyone can slowly guide him to grow, so that he will not grow crooked in the future and cause unpredictable consequences. Then, the third generation sent the two guards away, saying, "You two go out, I have something to talk to him alone." "But, sir, Yagura," one of the guards pointed at the boy, and was interrupted by the Mizukage before he finished speaking. "If he really has any dangerous thoughts, there is no point for you to guard here. Go out." After saying that, he waved his hand again, and his intention to send him away was very firm. Seeing this, the two had no choice but to leave a torch on the ground and slowly walk towards the exit. Just after walking 2 steps, they heard the third generation Mizukage behind them saying, "By the way, you didn't hear anything Yagura said just now. Do you understand what I mean?" Cough cough. Just after he finished speaking, he covered his mouth and coughed a few times. "Yes." The two guards responded in unison, and then walked towards the cave exit again. When their figures completely walked out of the barrier and disappeared in the cave, the third generation found a flat stone next to them, swept it twice with his sleeves, and pointed to a stone next to it, then sat down and said, "You sit down too, I have something to tell you." After thinking for a while, Yagura, who still couldn't figure it out, held the stick-like weapon and slowly sat down on the stone, pointed by the third generation. "Hey, what do you want to tell me, old man?" Yagura placed the weapon horizontally in his arms, supported his chin with both hands, and looked straight at the Mizukage and asked. He was like a good kid who just went to school and didn't see the naughty look he had just taken action against others. "Do you want to be a Mizukage?" The man in the bamboo hat squinted and asked softly. Hearing this, both Yagura and the three-tailed in his body were surprised. They didn't understand what the third generation meant by asking this question. Despite this, Yagura nodded and replied happily, "I think so. When I become the Mizukage, no one will be able to control me anymore. I can go wherever I want and eat whatever I want." After receiving such an alternative answer, the third generation was stunned for a moment, but then he changed his mind and felt relieved. At this time, Yagura was only 13 or 14 years old, still at a playful age, and with a lively nature. It was normal for him to become the Mizukage for these insignificant things, and he should not be too harsh on him. Then, he said with a smile, "The Mizukage shoulders the responsibility of leading the village, and can't just care about his own happiness. A qualified Mizukage needs to learn to listen to other people's opinions." Hearing this, Yagura frowned and sighed. After becoming the Mizukage, it's still so troublesome. Otherwise, what do you think? The third generation shook his head with a wry smile and asked solemnly, "I want to recommend you as the next candidate for the Mizukage. Are you willing?" The content of this chapter is actually very rich. You need to feel it seriously. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183 Status. Yagura was stunned when he did not expect the third generation to ask such a question. Seeing this, the three-tailed Isabu hurriedly urged him in his heart, promise him quickly. Why should I go to the trouble of promising him? With your help, as long as I become the strongest person in the Hidden Mist village, wouldn't it be a natural Mizukage? In his heart, Yagura asked the three-tailed in confusion. Seeing the boy's face showing a contemplative look, the third generation also knew not to interrupt. What do you know, little brat? In his heart, the three-tailed said bitterly, the Hidden Mist village does have a rule that the strongest person can serve as the Mizukage, but if this strongest person is rejected by the whole village, do you think he can still be the Mizukage? Yagura thought for a while and replied, no. Such a person will only be expelled by the whole village, and will never be able to touch the position of Mizukage. And your current identity is almost the same as this kind of person. The three-tailed sighed and said, me. Yagura was a little surprised, because we Halfway through his words, Sanwei hurriedly changed his words and said, because Jinkriki often goes berserk, people are very afraid of Jinkriki, and their reputation is not very good. If you want to take the position of Mizukage, you will definitely be rejected by the entire Kirigakure. No matter how strong you are, they will not accept you, and will not recognize your qualifications to become Mizukage. But if you have the support of the old guy Sandai, you can easily get the recognition of him, and the people he represents, and get the qualifications to succeed Mizukage. With such a relationship, it will be legitimate for you to compete for the position of Mizukage again, and you don't have to worry about being rejected by the entire Kirigakure. Isabu advised earnestly, fearing that Yagura, this ignorant kid, would reject the kindness of the Sandai. After all, rules are dead after all, and they serve people. If Yagura does not have a righteous reputation, even if he is invincible in the Kirigakure, it will be difficult for him to take the position of Mizukage. The kindness thrown by the Sandai must be accepted. Oh, so there is such a saying. In his heart, Yagura sighed helplessly. The world of adults is really too difficult to understand. Even the rules of the Hidden Mist Village can be overturned. Beside him, the Sandai who had been waiting quietly saw the boy smiling, and replied to him after some hard thinking, I do. Very good, very good. Ahem. The Sandai smiled and nodded, and coughed a few times. Then, he slowly stood up, dusted off the dust on his body, and continued, you can go back to the Hidden Mist Village with me now. Since you can fully control the power of the three-tail, there is no point in staying here. Hearing this, Yagura's eyes lit up, and he jumped up with joy. I can finally go back to the Hidden Mist Village. Finally I can go back. Seeing his happy appearance, the Sandai also showed a knowing smile. Originally, he thought that, as long as Yagura could slightly control the power of the three-tail, he would have a strategic weapon to stabilize the situation in the Hidden Mist. Unexpectedly, Yagura's control over the three tails was completely beyond his expectations. Not only did he get the super weapon to stabilize the situation in Kirigakure, but he also found the successor to the next Mizukage, which was really delightful. Let's go. The third generation picked up the torch stuck on the ground and took the excited Yagura to the exit. On the way, he walked while instructing the young man behind him. In a few days, I will hold a high-level meeting to discuss the candidate for the next Mizukage. And you just stay at home and stay well, master the power of the three tails, and prepare to meet the challenge of the Kirigakure ninjas. Yagura walked behind and replied happily, well, I know. As for what I said to you today, don't mention it to anyone for the time being, otherwise it may cause a lot of trouble. He continued to instruct. Okay, I remember. Yagura nodded. Not long after, the two came to the exit of the cave. Seeing that the Mizukage was safe and sound, the two anxiously waiting guards finally breathed a sigh of relief. Remove all the barriers. They are no longer needed. Standing on the other side of the barrier, the Sandai said to the four guards outside. Yes. Although they were a little confused, the four mist ninjas guarding the barrier nodded in response. Then, the four of them worked together to perform a spell and immediately lifted the barrier completely. Give orders. Except for the original sentries, the rest of the people on the island can withdraw to the Hidden Mist Village. Kirigi Yagura no longer needs to be guarded. The Sandai once again instructed the four people. Yes. The four people responded in unison. Soon, the news that the Sandai asked to evacuate spread throughout the island. Everyone was delighted that they could finally leave this godforsaken place. On the other side, Nanashiro also received a letter of challenge from Zabuza. Looking at the content of the letter, he sighed helplessly. What a warlike guy. Although they had been back to the village for half a year, Zabuza and Captain Ao were seriously injured and had to stay in the hospital for nearly 5 months before they were completely healed. In other words, Zabuza was only discharged from the hospital for more than a month, and he was eager to challenge him. It was really annoying. It's only been a month since he was discharged from the hospital, and he sent a letter of challenge. He is really crazy. After putting away the letter, Qishuang sighed again. Zabuza wanted to win the competition with him, not to lose. Therefore, the opponent would never come to him when he was not in good condition. In other words, Zabuza should have confirmed that he had recovered to his peak state at this time, so he sent a letter of challenge. but the opponent had suffered such a serious injury before and had been lying in bed for nearly 5 months. His physical condition fell to the bottom. According to common sense, it would take a very long time to train to fully recover. But now, it has only been about a month since he was discharged from the hospital, and Zabuza has confirmed that he has recovered. It is really hard to imagine how cruel and desperate the opponent must have gone through in this month to achieve such an effect. It is really crazy. The day of the duel soon arrived. Qishuang packed everything and followed the address on the duel letter to a remote training ground in the Hidden Mist village. Neither he nor Zabuza was the type to show off, and they didn't want too many people to see the process of their fight, so both he and Zabuza were very satisfied with this remote training ground. "Hey, Qishuang, we are here." Before he walked in, he heard a familiar female voice calling him from afar. Following the sound, he saw Meditarumi in a blue dress standing at the other end of the training ground, waving at him desperately. There was also a young man next to him. "King, why are you here too?" Qishuang asked the two in surprise as he approached. He was a little surprised why Meditarumi and the other two were here. It's important to have a legitimate reason. Chapter 184, Training Ground. "Why can't we come?" Meditarumi raised her head, rolled her eyes at him, and said, "It would be a pity to miss such an interesting duel between you and Zabuza." Qishuang twitched her lips and said helplessly, "I'm not saying that you shouldn't come, but I want to ask how you found this place. I don't remember telling you the time and place of my duel with Zabuza, and Zabuza is not a person who bothers so much." As he said that, he looked at another young man standing quietly in the center of the training ground. "Zabuza has arrived. It's just that I don't know how long he has been there." On the other side, Zabuza, who had been waiting in the training ground early, also noticed Qishuang's arrival at the first time. But after seeing the other party chatting with Meditarumi, he knew what to do and didn't disturb them. Although he had been waiting for this day for a long time, he still didn't mind waiting a little longer. At the edge of the training ground, Meditarumi smiled and said proudly, "As early as when you agreed to a duel with Zabuza at the front line, I deliberately paid attention to your movements. So, when I found out yesterday that Zabuza sent you a letter of challenge, I guessed that you two were preparing for a duel in the near future. Then, I deliberately found the captain and used his white eyes to search for your whereabouts, and it was easy to find here." As she said, she stepped aside to reveal the masked young man behind her. "I also want to see what the result of your duel with Zabuza will be," King said with a smile. Facing the two people's excited eyes, Qishuang shook her head helplessly and said, "You are really leisurely. Okay, I won't talk to you anymore. Zabuza must be waiting impatiently." After that, he waved his hand and turned to walk to the center of the training ground. Looking at the two figures approaching, Meditarumi asked King curiously, "Captain, who do you think has a better chance of winning?" "It should be Qishuang." Looking at the boy walking farther and farther away, King thought for a while and said slowly, "Compared with most people, both of them are geniuses. But there are also differences in geniuses. From the progress of the two of them in the past few years, I personally think that Qishuang's progress is more significant. Perhaps, at the beginning, Zabuza seemed a little stronger than Qishuang, but after a few years of growth, Qishuang has caught up with the gap, or even surpassed it. Especially the last time he fought with the one-eyed mysterious man, he defeated that person by himself. Such progress is really shameful." But Qishuang later said that he used very despicable means to defeat that person. Meditarumi said with a pout. She admitted that Qishuang had made rapid progress, but if she was asked to admit that Qishuang really relied on his own strength to defeat his opponent in that battle, she really couldn't agree. King sighed and shook his head. No matter what the means, the fact that he defeated the mysterious man cannot be changed. Besides, no matter how despicable the means are, that was a tactic he came up with his own wisdom. He used his own wisdom to defeat the enemy. Wisdom is also a kind of strength. If it were you, could you think of it? After saying that, he looked deeply at the girl next to him. King still remembered that when she first came to work for him, Meditarumi was still a little girl about 10 years old, and now she has grown into a graceful girl. Time flies. Hearing the captain's question, Meditarumi was stunned immediately. She thought carefully, then pouted and shook her head helplessly. Qishuang's tactics to defeat that man, no matter what, she couldn't think of it. King looked towards the center of the training ground and continued, perhaps it was because of this understanding that Zabuza was eager to continue the unfinished duel with the guy he had once disdained, because he saw him catch up. Unfinished duel? Terumi Mei asked in surprise. When did they fight? Why have I never heard of it? They were in the same team and had been together for quite a while. She didn't remember the two of them ever fighting. You didn't forget that Nanashi graduated from school a year late, did you? King turned his head and glanced at her, saying jokingly, oh, after the captain reminded her. Terumi Mei also remembered that Nanashi was poisoned and delayed graduation for a year. It was also that year that Zabuza, who was in the same examination room with him, massacred all the candidates in that examination room. If Nanashi hadn't had an accident at that time, the two should have fought at that time. On the other side, Zabuza, who was standing in the middle of the training ground, leaned on a long sword, looked at the boy who was slowly approaching and said, you are finally here. I have been waiting for you for a long time. Qishuang looked at him in surprise and said doubtfully, you have not been waiting here since you sent the letter of challenge yesterday? No. Zabuza leaned on the sword and said expressionlessly, this duel should have ended 4 years ago, but you dragged it until now. Although the other party has never admitted that he deliberately withdrew from the exam due to poisoning, the years of getting along on the battlefield have made them understand each other better. Whether it is him, Terumi, or Captain King, they all suspected that what happened that year was not an accident. It was more like a drama directed and performed by Qishuang himself. Although it sounds incredible, for a child of that age, there should be no such scheming, but their teammate is different from ordinary people. Whether it is mental or wisdom, it is far beyond their peers. It is really impossible for them not to think in that direction. When he heard Zabuza mention 4 years ago, Qishuang immediately understood that the other party was talking about the graduation exam of their class. Then, he let out a long breath and sighed. Yes, if I hadn't accidentally been poisoned and had to withdraw from the exam, I might have died under your knife. He would never admit that he cheated to withdraw from the exam. No matter how others speculated, he would not admit it. Although it was not a big deal, if someone traced the source and questioned it, I'm afraid something would go wrong. As long as he insisted that what happened that year was just an accident, no matter how others speculated and questioned, they would not interrogate him for such a small matter. Although there are some flaws, it can only be like this. Liar. Until now, you still don't want to admit that you cheated to withdraw from the exam. Zabuza pressed the handle of the knife with his right hand and raised the sign of opposition with his left hand. Seeing this, Qishuang also slowly raised the seal of opposition and said in surprise, I didn't lie to you. It was really an accident. You lied. Seeing his seal of opposition raised, Zabuza clenched the 5 fingers of his right hand, took a sudden step forward, drew his sword like flowing water, and slashed horizontally. Chapter 185 Fight. Facing this sudden attack, Qishuang did not panic at all. He stepped back and avoided the long sword that was slashing across. But Zabuza's attack did not stop there. He did not expect that this attack could defeat his opponent. At the moment, when the blade was about to run out of power, he suddenly jumped up, swung the long sword to the side, and then turned over his head, clenched his hands, and slashed at the boy on the ground. You can't block it. Seeing his fierce slash, Qishuang frowned immediately. The opponent used the momentum to gain strength, and the power of this attack was far greater than the previous horizontal slash. He was not a power type ninja, and he would definitely not be able to withstand it if he blocked this attack. Then, he turned over and rolled out from the side. Clang! Zabuza's fierce attack missed and slashed on the ground, immediately splitting the ground into a more than 1 meter long hole. Standing up, looking at the deep knife marks, Qishuang shrank her pupils and said solemnly, isn't your attack a little too cruel? Zabuza stood up, turned his head, and said expressionlessly, didn't I tell you early in the morning, go all out and fight seriously. If you are killed by me by accident, don't blame me. In that case, I won't be polite. Qishuang said while making a seal. Seeing this, Zabuza hurriedly retreated. At this distance, he had no chance to interrupt the opponent's spellcasting process. It would be better to avoid the edge and prepare for defense. Ice release, needle rain technique. Gathering chakra in the palm of his hand, Qishuang aimed at Zabuza's figure and opened his palm from a distance. Through the transformation of the nature of ice, the chakra overflowed into the air. Then, half a foot long ice needles condensed in the air, floating beside him, protecting him firmly inside. From a distance, it looked like a large hedgehog ball. Ice needles? Seeing this, Zabuza, who was retreating in a hurry, stopped immediately and then inserted his long sword into the ground and quickly turned his fingers to make seals. After a long time together, they are familiar with each other and naturally know how to deal with their teammates' tricks. Go. When the ice needles beside him were completely solidified, Qishuang clenched his open palm, and the ice needles suspended beside him immediately shot towards the boy with the sword like a rushing torrent. The whistling sound of breaking through the air drowned out everything, even the sound of the wind and insects around. Only the sound of dense ice needles rubbing against the air at high speed was left. Just when the ice needles were approaching, Zabuza's technique was also completed. Water style, water array column facing the whistling storm of ice needles. Zabuza took a deep breath, then puffed up his chest and suddenly sprayed out a light blue high pressure water column. The seemingly unstoppable storm collapsed under his high pressure water column and was immediately shattered without hurting him at all. Not only that, after the high pressure water column dispersed the ice needle storm, it rushed towards the boy on the other side. Qishuang, who failed to succeed in one attack, did not lose heart, nor did he feel any surprise. He quickly avoided the oncoming high pressure water column, took out a kunai, and immediately rushed towards Zabuza. Seeing this, Zabuza immediately adjusted the direction of the high pressure water column and swept it towards the boy who was running. Unfortunately, the opponent's movements were too agile, and his water column was always a little behind, and he could not catch the opponent's trajectory at all. It was just a futile effort to soak the entire training ground. Then, the opponent rushed into the range of 2 meters around him. As a last resort, Zabuza had to stop the ritual and pull up the long sword on the ground to fight. Clang! With sparks flying, the crisp sound of the kunai and the long sword clashing spread across the training ground. He narrowly blocked the sharp blade of the kunai that Qishuang was slashing at. Yes, that's it. Looking at the face so close, he said excitedly, "Let's fight with all our strength. I want to see how we will win." "Are you really so obsessed with the victory or defeat at the moment?" Qishuang frowned and kicked out. Zabuza reacted quickly. The moment he noticed his movement, he also kicked back. The two legs collided, and the two took advantage of the momentum to retreat and separated again. "I didn't care at first, but we have been together for too long." Standing firm, Zabuza pointed the long sword in his hand at the boy opposite and continued, "I have witnessed your growth with my own eyes, and I'm sure you are a good opponent. Plus, every time I hear someone compare me with you, and mention the exam 4 years ago, my heart feels as uncomfortable as a cat scratching, and I want to know more and more. If you didn't withdraw from the exam that year, what would the result be? Will you be killed by me, or will I be killed by you?" Hearing this, Qishuang shook his head helplessly and chose to remain silent. Facing Zabuza's troubles, he really didn't know how to answer. Today, he finally understood that the duel between the two was actually the result of the surrounding situation. If he performed mediocrely, everyone would be able to see the answer at a glance, and naturally they would not discuss such boring topics. However, his growth has reached a point that cannot be ignored, and the two are in the same team, so it is difficult for everyone not to compare him with Zabuza. The massacre in the examination hall in the past also vaguely showed another possibility. In this atmosphere of discussion, it is natural for Zabuza to be unable to control his inner impulse at his age. The so-called 3 people make a tiger, that's all. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Zabuza continued, "No matter what, I must get a real result today." As he said, he inserted the long sword into the ground and turned his fingers to seal again. Then, a high water column surged behind him, and then the water column suddenly broke down in the air, and the top part had turned into a dragon head. Water style, water dragon bullet technique. With a thought, Zabuza controlled the dragon head on top of his head and smashed it towards the boy not far away. Seeing the water dragon roaring towards him with its huge mouth opened, Qishuang hurriedly dodged. The water dragon bit the ground and missed, leaving a gap the size of a wash basin. But the opponent's attack did not end there. Zabuza's control ability was amazing. He made the water dragon stick to the ground and turned a corner to avoid crashing into the ground. After dragging a groove several meters long on the ground, it roared towards the target again. So flexible. Seeing this, Qishuang frowned. Judging from the opponent's control level in the surrounding terrain, it was unlikely that he could use this technique by dodging and making the opponent's attack fail. He had to block it hard and offset it, otherwise he would have to be chased by others. Then, while dodging the water dragon's attack, he turned his hands and made seals. After the chakra was gathered, he opened his right palm towards the water dragon that was rushing towards him again. Ice Escape, Wall of Frost. Chapter 186 Fewer. Just as the water dragon was approaching, ice attribute chakra solidified in his palm, and a palm-sized piece of ice appeared. Then, as he continued to infuse chakra, the piece of ice grew a lot in an instant, turning into a barrier made of ice about 2 fingers thick. Boom. The water dragon aimed at the target and smashed it down without hesitation, but it was blocked by the seemingly thin barrier and shattered into water splashes all over the sky. And Nana Frost, who was supporting the barrier behind, still maintained the posture of one hand stretched forward without moving a bit. Seeing this scene, Terumi covered her mouth and exclaimed at the edge of the training ground, "What a powerful defense ability. It didn't even shake." Yes. King next to him nodded, staring at the barrier in front of the boy in the training ground, wondering, even if the ice he made has extraordinary hardness and can resist the water dragon, the defense shouldn't be so outrageous, right? As he said, he quickly gathered chakra to his right eye and activated the inside power of his Byakugan. He was really curious about why Qishuang's barrier had such a terrifying defensive ability. According to common sense, even if the ice was hard enough and would not be broken by the water dragon composed of high pressure water flow, the impact brought by the water dragon's large volume was not a decoration. Qishuang, who was supporting the ice barrier from behind, also needed to bear part of the impact brought by the water dragon. How could it be that it could easily block such a strong impact without even shaking? Could it be that he buried part of the barrier into the soil under his feet and released the impact into the ground? With such doubts, King swept the power of the Byakugan towards the ice barrier. "What's the situation, Captain?" Terumi asked curiously. Because there was a distance between them, she could only barely see that Qishuang had condensed an ice barrier in front of her, but she could not see any more detailed information. She could only hope for the captain next to her. After all, the Byakugan's insight was unparalleled in the ninja world, and it was not a vegetarian. Very strange. King frowned and continued, "The barrier in front of him is not thick, only 2 fingers wide, but the area opened is very large, about 5 square meters. Moreover, the surface is in a strange arc shape, and there is no flat place at all. The most strange thing is that his barrier is just held up by his hands, and there is no fulcrum on the ground. How is it possible?" Terumi exclaimed. Even she knew that without any fulcrum, it would be difficult to resist the impact of the water dragon with human power alone. At this moment, the moment when the water dragon in the training ground was exhausted, a young man with a knife rushed out. It was Zabuza who took advantage of the huge body of the water dragon to launch a surprise attack. "You blocked my water dragon bullet. I don't believe you can block my knife," he shouted angrily, and chopped down the translucent ice barrier with a knife. Clang! The long knife hit the barrier, making a metallic collision sound. Unfortunately, Zabuza did not see the expected result. His sword only left a shallow white mark on the barrier. It did not shake the opponent at all. How could this happen? He was shocked. The water dragon bullet was blocked, or it could be said that it was too large and the power was not concentrated enough, but he used all his strength in this attack just now in order to break the surface and break the barrier. Unfortunately, the result was not as he wished. Despite this, he still forced himself to maintain his composure and retreated immediately with the recoil force from the barrier. At the same time, Terumi and the others who saw this scene outside the training ground were also shocked. The defensive power of the barrier was too incredible. They racked their brains, but could not figure out why. In the end, they could only conclude that it must be a new ninjutsu that Nanashi had recently come up with, which contained unknown principles. Inside the training ground, Nanashi lifted the technique and looked at the scattered ice flowers after the barrier shattered, and was also full of emotion. This defense should be comparable to the first stage of Susanoo, right? He thought silently. The frost wall is of course not a simple, cheap ice wall made of ice cubes. Instead, he used a natural principle, a force-bearing structure called thin shell, to form a curved ice wall. This thin shell structure has a natural ability to resist pressure. It can evenly distribute the pressure to the entire curved surface, avoiding the damage of a certain defense point due to concentrated force, thereby achieving the effect of improving defense. In other words, the defense built with the thin shell structure can obtain a defense capability far beyond the defense material itself. For example, a small egg is born with such a natural principle. If a few millimeters thick eggshell is peeled off, it will naturally be easily crushed by people, but if it remains intact, it will be difficult to crush it again. The material of the eggshell is already like this, with the 7 frosts hard ice comparable to fine iron as a basis, and the thin shell structure to perform defense techniques. The improvement of its defense is naturally immeasurable. Judging from the impact of Zabuza's water dragon, it was difficult to even destroy his ordinary ice wall. Facing this frost wall with a much higher defense, it was impossible to have any effect. As for the subsequent sword slash, he naturally understood that the opponent was trying to break the surface with a point. But the most rogue feature of the thin shell structure is precisely the dispersion of force. In addition, he encountered an ice escape user who made the entire ice surface smooth to the extreme. Even the tiny ice surface that the blade touched was in an arc state, and there was no relatively flat position at all. When Zabuza slashed, the pressure from the blade was immediately dispersed to various positions by the arc surface of the ice wall, and the force could not be concentrated. Without the blessing of power, the blade naturally could not cut through his defense barrier. If you want to break his frost wall by breaking the surface with a point, you may have to try with the tip of an embroidery needle. Not only that, as long as the force per unit area of the thin shell structure does not exceed a certain bearing limit, it will not break. This means that increasing the area of the curved surface and weakening the force per unit area can further improve the defensive capability. The defensive capability of the thin shell structure can also increase with the increase of the curved surface area. In theory, it is a defensive structure with no upper limit. In a sense, his frost wall is already one of the top defensive techniques in the ninja world. At present, the main structure of his ninjutsu has been completed, and the rest is the work of polishing to gradually perfect this ninjutsu. The only drawback is that this defensive wall has little resistance to ninjutsu with soft lethality. For example, Meditarumi's dissolution. People don't rely on kinetic energy to win at all, and the powerful weakening effect of the ice wall on kinetic energy is useless in front of this. It has to be said that this is a very regrettable defect. If you haven't heard of the thin shell structure, ask Beidou. Chapter 187, Frozen, Part 1. On the other side, seeing the shattered ice flowers all over the sky, Zabuza said with a gloomy face, "I admit that your defense is very powerful, but if you just defend and don't attack, that's simply an insult to me." Seeing this, Qishuang sighed and said, "I know, so I took it down." With just this move, Zabuza can indeed be helpless and end this duel, but the result of that can only make Zabuza more unwilling, more concerned about, and obsessed with the victory between the two. In the future, it will be more troublesome. Therefore, he must fight with him in a real way and completely end the other party's wish. Since you know, it's the best. Zabuza's face looked a little better, and then he changed his handprints, and the puddle at his feet quickly surged, and turned into a human form. 2 water clones appeared beside him. Then, 1 person and 2 clones rushed over in an interlaced manner. Confusing vision, but this trick doesn't work on me. Looking at the 3 people rushing over in an interlaced manner, Qishuang shook his head slightly. Facing this kind of attack, the most direct method is to launch an indiscriminate large-scale attack. No matter whether he is real or fake, one move can reveal the opponent's true body. Then, he stood calmly in place, his fingers flying, preparing to seal and cast a spell. How confident are you? You even save the time of moving and dodging. Do you think your spell casting speed is faster than my sword? Seeing him preparing to seal, Zabuza sneered. Then he and his clones immediately dispersed to 3 directions and rushed up at high speed. The 3 of them attacked from 3 different directions at the same time, sandwiching Qishuang, who was sealing in the middle. Just when the blades of him and his clone were less than 1 meter away from Qishuang, he thought he had won. Qishuang stopped the seal and stomped his foot lightly. Water style, water array wall. Then, a circle of light blue ripples appeared at his feet. Sensing the fluctuation of chakra, Zabuza felt something was wrong. He knew that he had underestimated the opponent's speed of casting the spell, and he wanted to retreat immediately. However, the sword was too fast, and it was too late for him to withdraw his moves and dodge. Boom. The circle of light blue ripples at Qishuang's feet rose into the sky, turning into a blue curtain that blocked Zabuza and the other 2 outside. Zabuza forced himself to withdraw his moves, but only half of his body retreated, and he still couldn't avoid it completely. The arm and shoulder that swung the sword were washed by a torrent. The handle of the sword immediately slipped out of his hand, was swept into the torrent, and rushed into the sky. A strong pulling force came from his arm. If it weren't for his 2 feet holding the ground tightly with chakra, he would have been like the long sword that slipped out of his hand and was immediately swept into the sky by the torrent. Even he himself couldn't dodge it, and the 2 water clones were even worse, and they didn't avoid the sudden water curtain at all. After being rushed by the rapid current of the water array wall, the 2 clones were immediately wrapped in it, and then completely dispersed by the rapid current and disappeared. Zabuza did not see that at the moment when the water curtain rushed into the sky. The boy inside the water curtain changed a set of hand seals. Water is not only used in this way, Qishuang muttered to himself. As he said that, he injected ice attribute chakra into the water curtain next to him. Ice release, ice sealing technique. Then, the water curtain that rushed into the sky seemed to suddenly stop and began to freeze from the ground upwards. Zabuza, who had not yet escaped from the rapid current of the water curtain, did not expect such a change at all. The arm in the water curtain was immediately frozen in it. Along with him, the long sword that was wrapped in the rapid current was also frozen. I won, Zabuza. Looking at the boy who was frozen outside, Qishuang slowly walked to the ice wall formed by the water curtain. He pressed his left hand on it, expelling some of the ice chakra in the ice wall, and a gap nearly as high as a person immediately appeared in front of him. He immediately walked out of the gap. Is it over? Outside the training ground, Terumi was very surprised to see this scene, and she couldn't believe her eyes. Everyone was in the same team, and they knew each other's abilities. According to her estimation, even if Zabuza had a smaller chance of winning, he wouldn't lose so quickly and so easily. Look up. King stared at the training ground with his white eyes and said without turning his head. Terumi looked up along the frozen water curtain and immediately saw a familiar figure. Zabuza's feet were sucked on the ice wall, staring straight down. Substitution jutsu. After taking a closer look at the frozen figure, Terumi came to a conclusion. It seems that Zabuza used the short distance teleportation ability of the substitution jutsu to escape before being frozen, and left a clone behind to create the illusion of being frozen. He took advantage of the situation and attached himself to the ice wall, waiting for the opportunity. Beside him, King nodded slightly and continued. In terms of the timeliness of the substitution technique, Zabuza no longer has a second chance to use it. From the current situation, he has already fallen into a disadvantage. If the opportunity created by this substitution technique still cannot reverse the situation, his hope of victory will only become more slim. Hearing this, looking at Nana Frost breaking through the ice and Zabuza quietly attached to the ice wall, Terumi was thoughtful. Just when Nana Frost broke through the ice wall and just stuck half of her body out of the gap, there was a whistling sound of breaking through the air above his head. He immediately heard that it was the sound of shuriken rubbing against the air. Since he only stuck half of his body out and was stuck in the ice wall and couldn't dodge, he conveniently cut a brick-sized ice block from the gap in the ice wall and followed the sound to block all the shurikens that suddenly shot at him. Ding ding ding. The blocked shuriken scattered all over the ground. At the same time, a human-shaped shadow followed closely behind, completely covering Nana Frost. Zabuza, who was waiting for the opportunity on the ice wall, used the shuriken as a cover and launched a surprise attack. Aiming at Nana Frost's neck, He stretched out the kunai in his hand. Ding. It was still a futile attack. Nana Frost used the brick like ice in his hand to block the kunai stabbed by Zabuza. Do you want to kill me? Nana Frost asked solemnly while blocking the kunai. At this time, he also saw the face of the attacker clearly. That was Zabuza. As for the one on the other side who was frozen by him, he immediately understood that it should be the other party's stand. Zabuza replied expressionlessly. I said, we must go all out and attack with the belief of killing each other. Don't blame me if you die. As he said, he raised his knee and immediately swept his leg over. Nana Frost, who had no way to dodge, had to use his other hand to protect his head and block the opponent's attack. Dung. A dull sound of flesh hitting flesh was heard, and Qishuang suddenly felt a great force on her arm, and she was involuntarily blown away. Zabuza, who was attached to the ice wall, took advantage of the situation to form a set of hand seals. Water style, iron cannonball. He took a deep breath, puffed up his chest, and then sprayed a high pressure water ball at Qishuang, who was blown away. Chapter 188 Water Prison. The water ball swelled in the wind and immediately became the size of a basin and shot towards Qishuang rapidly. Seeing this, Terumi Mei on the edge of the training ground couldn't help but frowned and said, Zabuza's attack is too ruthless, isn't it? Whether it was the close attack just now or this high pressure water bomb, there was no sign of holding back, just like risking his life. If Qishuang is not careful, he may die in the hands of the opponent. Perhaps he saw the gap between himself and Qishuang, so he was a little impatient. King next to him murmured, facing an opponent stronger than himself, Zabuza can only win if he fights for his life with all his strength. In the training ground, Qishuang, who was swept away by a leg, noticed the high pressure water bomb that followed before he landed. He wanted to avoid it, but there was nothing to use as leverage, so he couldn't dodge in this state. However, he didn't panic at all, because he knew that the more at this time, the more he needed to be calm. Then, he stopped looking at the water bullet that was getting closer and closer, and instead concentrated on turning his fingers and making hand seals. Are you still not going to give up? Seeing him making hand seals, Zabuza's face turned grim, and he jumped off the ice wall, holding a kunai, and chasing after him. Originally, the power of that iron cannonball was enough to decide the outcome, but Nanash's dying struggle forced him to give up the idea of waiting for victory. Even if he couldn't think of a way to resist in this state, it didn't mean that others couldn't think of one. Especially, the opponent was still Nanashi. He had to be fully prepared so that he wouldn't be helpless after the opponent really blocked his attack. Water style, water prison technique. On the other side, Nanashi, who had finished preparing, gathered chakra in his mouth, and after the water's nature was transformed, he spit out a stream of blue water to wrap himself in it. When the high pressure water bullet was approaching, he quickly locked himself in a water ball with a diameter of more than 3 meters. With the water ball on his body to cushion the impact, it was difficult for him to suffer substantial damage, whether it was the impact of landing or the high pressure water bombs behind him. It could even prevent Zabuza from continuing to pursue him. Although the ice sealing technique could achieve a similar effect, the texture of ice was too hard, and the buffering effective force was far inferior to that of water. The result would definitely be very painful. In this case, it would be more cost-effective to use water than ice. Moreover, the higher level defensive techniques required more time to prepare. In this case, he no longer had extra time to use higher level defensive techniques. The water prison technique was the most suitable technique to solve his dilemma at the moment. Boom. At the moment when the water prison on Qishuang's body was formed, the high pressure water bomb suddenly hit it. The part of the spherical water prison that was hit immediately became concave, and the water body that constructed the entire sphere shook again and again, but there was no sign of collapse. Boom. Then, there was another muffled sound, and the impact of the high pressure water bomb changed the flight trajectory of the water prison and accelerated it to the ground. The spherical water prison was already concave, and it flattened immediately after hitting the ground, like a rubber ball that was squeezed by someone, but it still stubbornly did not break. It was just that the spherical water body was shaking endlessly under the impact of the two forces, releasing the pressure it received, and soon began to rebound and return to its original standard spherical shape. The high-pressure water bomb that hit it, after exhausting its kinetic energy, turned into a pool of clear water and slowly flowed to the ground along the sphere. How could it be? Zabuza, who was following closely behind, almost bit his teeth when he saw this scene. He had expected that the opponent might take his attack, but he never thought that the result would be like this. The attack that he thought could decide the outcome was actually blocked intact by someone. Judging from this situation, Qishuang, who was locked in the water prison, could not be injured at all. Damn it. Cursing inwardly, he immediately accelerated his speed and rushed forward, hoping to seize the opportunity when the opponent had not yet escaped and launch a new counterattack. At the same time, seeing Qishuang using the water prison to cleverly resolve the crisis, Terumi and Mei were also shocked. What's wrong with his brain? He can actually come up with the idea of using the water prison on himself to avoid damage. The girl at the edge of the training ground exclaimed with her hands covering her mouth. The water prison technique was originally a technique to trap the enemy, but now in Qishuang's hands, it subverted her cognition and became a defensive technique. And the defensive power seems to be quite good. King thought for a moment and said solemnly, in this world, every ninjutsu has its own uses, but their uses are not limited to the description of the technique itself. The key lies in how the practitioner uses these ninjutsu. Nana's ideas are always wild and unexpected, and he is more flexible than us in using techniques. Maybe we think that defensive techniques should only be used for defense, and offensive techniques should only be used for attack, but in his heart, he never has such limited ideas. He has always only considered what kind of technique can achieve the result he wants, instead of applying various ninjutsu rigidly according to the records like us. He thought that water prison could achieve the effect he wanted, so he used it. As he spoke, King's tone was filled with envy. This kind of innate ability to change cleverly also means a very high combat awareness. Such opponents are extremely difficult to deal with on the battlefield. Fortunately, Nina is one of them. In the training ground, the unwilling Zabuza had not yet rushed to the side of the water prison when he saw the figure inside flipping his fingers again. Qishuang, who was locked in the water ball, did not rush out, but injected ice attribute chakra into the water ball and launched the ninjutsu again. Ice release, ice cone technique. There were sharp protrusions on the surface of the water ball, like a balloon about to be pierced by a bamboo stick. Then, the sharp protrusions quickly solidified from top to bottom, turning into crystal clear ice cones. Go. Thinking in his heart, Qishuang controlled the ice cones solidified on the surface of the water bowl and shot them straight out. In an instant, the 3-foot-long ice cones completely blocked Zabuza's way forward, and even many ice cones were shot into the sky by Qishuang, covering him from top to bottom in a parabolic trajectory. Seeing this scene, Zabuza stopped rushing forward and immediately retreated. Seeing that he could not escape the attack range of the ice cone, he quickly formed a set of hand seals. Water style, water array wall. The water attributed chakra was injected into his feet, and a blue ripple surged out from the ground, encircling him inside, and then the ripple turned into a torrent and surged upwards, completely closing above his head. It turned into a giant blue bowl, and turned him upside down inside. Have you ever thought that water prison can be played like this? Chapter 189, Frozen, Part 2. Wow. The long ice pick hit the water curtain rapids, like pebbles thrown into the rushing river by a naughty child. It only made a slight splash, and then made no sound. There is no sign of breaking it. Seeing this situation, Qishuang was not surprised. Ice escape is not known for its speed. The ice cones he shoots out do not have much impact at all, and they do not take up a weight advantage. In addition, the water body created by shooting itself has extremely strong buffering capacity. The momentum of the ice cone was slowed down by the water curtain, and its kinetic energy was immediately released. If it could break through the water curtain barrier, it would be a ghost. As the water on his body was condensed into ice cones and shot out, the water prism became smaller and smaller. By the time the last ice cone was shot out, the huge water ball that had previously enveloped him had disappeared. Outside of the water curtain on Zabuza's side, there were many ice picks left scattered on the ground, which were caused by being bounced off by the rapids on the water curtain. But there were more ice picks that were not bounced away by the water curtain rapids, but were wrapped up in the water curtain rapids and mixed in. Although this moved water wall blocked my ice cone, it is also the source of your defeat, Zabuza. Looking at the blue water curtain, Qishuang made a seal with one hand and murmured. When the ice pick was exhausted, he had already prepared another technique. Ice release, freezing technique. At this moment, he activated the chakra contained in the ice cone and the water curtain, and activated the ninjutsu. Zabuza, who was protecting himself with the water curtain, had just noticed that the offensive outside had stopped. Before he could remove the water curtain, he noticed another chakra fluctuation in the surrounding water curtain. An astonishing cold air emanated from the water curtain, and the temperature in the air suddenly dropped a lot. Ice release. When he noticed this change, he immediately understood that this was the blood inheritance limited ninjutsu of his teammates. It's just that he doesn't quite understand yet. Qishuang's attack method only senses new changes in the water curtain. Therefore, even if he knows that the opponent uses ice escape, he has no way to defend or parry. Before he could think of a countermeasure, some new changes appeared on the water curtain. Around the ice cones mixed into the water curtain, a large amount of water began to condense. The speed of the water dropped sharply and stopped immediately. By the time Zabuza came to his senses completely, the entire water curtain had been completely frozen. No, he is trying to trap me. His heart froze, and he immediately understood Qishuang's plan. Immediately, he took out 2 detonating kunai and shot them directly at the corner of the frozen water curtain, trying to use the detonating talisman to blast a gap and escape from here. Boom boom. Along with the dazzling firelight and billowing black smoke, countless pieces of ice were thrown out by the explosion impact, immediately covering the entire small water curtain space. Zabuza, who only wanted to escape from here immediately, did not expect that the explosion would have such consequences, and was immediately hit by the shock wave and the shooting ice fragments. He was immediately thrown away and hit the frozen water curtain behind him. His whole body was already covered in scars. Regardless of his injuries, he immediately rushed into the smoke screen and wanted to escape immediately. However, he was disappointed to find that 2 shallow pits the size of water tanks had been blasted into the frozen water curtain, but it had not been completely penetrated. Little did he know that the volume of water would increase after it solidified into ice. In addition, in order to resist the ice cone attack, he had used all his strength to create a water curtain, resulting in the thickness of the water layer in the water curtain being more than 1 meter. After being frozen now, the thickness of the ice layer is far more than 1 meter. Coupled with Qishuang's in-depth research on ice escape, the hardness of the ice he created was not much worse than refined iron. The water curtain that he had frozen had now turned into a steel-like cage. It would be extremely difficult for Zabuza to escape from here by breaking the ice. Outside the school grounds, AO side, Zabuza is going to lose. With his Byakugan, he could clearly see the process of Zabuza using the detonating kunai, but the 2 detonating kunai failed to explode the ice. He blew himself up. The result is obvious. Even if Zabuza could use more detonating talismans to blow it up, he himself would be seriously injured due to the small space. By then, even if you escape from the predicament, you will not be able to fight again. Terumimei, who was next to him, curled his lips and said, "Isn't his ice style's restraint on water style too severe? Based on this situation, I'm afraid our water style will have no effect in front of him." Compared to regarding the outcome of the 2, she discovered another issue that deserved more attention. The Snow Clan had also used ice escape in the past, but they had never heard of their ice escape being able to reach this level. Now, in the hands of Qishuang, ice escape has developed such an ability to completely restrain water escape, which is really worrying. Hearing this, King replied solemnly, "Let's ask him carefully after the 2 of them are completely beaten." The ability to completely restrain water escape will be very troublesome if the people above know about it. The thing that Kirigakure is best at is water escape, but now there is such a guy who can completely restrain water escape. If someone is willing to use this method, it will be a disaster for Kirigakure village. He could completely foresee that the higher-ups would try their best to make this method disappear in the ninja world. In the school grounds, after using ninjutsu to freeze a water curtain, Qishuang hurriedly rushed towards the frozen water curtain while completing the hand seals. It's true that the freeze technique can trap Zabuza, but it's not enough to determine the outcome. Moreover, his freezing technique could only barely freeze a water curtain, but it had not completely blocked Zabuza's actions. There were huge loopholes in it. The loophole is the water curtain itself. The frozen water curtain seemed to have trapped Zabuza tightly with no way to escape, but the surface was not covered by water, and the freezing technique he used on the water curtain was not frozen ground. If Zabuza discovered this omission and dug a hole in the ground to escape, it would be troublesome. Therefore, he must make up for the flaw before the opponent discovers this omission and decide the outcome. Ice release ice freezing technique quickly rushed to the outside of the frozen water curtain. Qishuang pressed it with a palm and poured the chakra he had accumulated into it. Because the previous freezing water curtain had exhausted the chakra he had reserved on the ice cone, and if he wanted to perform further changes, he would have to re-inject chakra. Therefore, it is no longer possible to control remotely. Immediately, the frozen water curtain with a radius of 4 to 5 meters suddenly made a cracking sound, and then the ice layer shrank sharply towards the center at a speed visible to the naked eye. Zabuza, who was trapped in the frozen water curtain, was still hesitating whether to use more detonating kunai to blast the ice, but he found that the surrounding ice was shrinking rapidly. Before he could react, the sharply shrinking ice layer was already in front of him. He didn't even have a chance to struggle, and was instantly pressed inside, unable to move anymore. The whole person was completely frozen in the ice. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190 Crack. Seeing Zabuza and the huge water curtain shrink into an ice ball with a diameter of about 3 meters, King waved to the girl next to him. The winner has been decided. Let's go and take a look. After that, he took the lead and walked to the center of the training ground. Hey, wait for me, Captain. Terumi Medi shouted and hurried to catch up. In the training ground, Nana Frost put one hand on the round ice ball, looking at the boy with eyes wide open and scars frozen in the ice, and said seriously, Zabuza, you lose. Although he couldn't hear the other party's voice clearly through the thick ice, Zabuza could still barely understand what Nana Frost had just said, based on the other party's lip shape. He was very unwilling, but he had no choice. His whole body was locked in this hard and abnormally cold ice, and he couldn't even move his eyelids. There was no way to talk about counterattack, and it could only exist in his own fantasy. Not only that, the unique cold air emitted from the ice was rapidly spreading and permeating his whole body, lowering his body temperature, suppressing cell activity, and causing his body functions to decline every moment. It wouldn't take long before he would completely lose his fighting power, because his whole body was soaked in cold air. Even if Qishuang lifted the ice restrictions on him at that time, he would not be able to fight back. He lost, and lost completely. However, the more this happened, the more unwilling he was. Once upon a time, he, a genius known as the Ghost Man, actually lost to a child who had disdained him in the past. At this moment, he even began to doubt whether he would still have a chance to survive if Qishuang had not withdrawn from the exam and the two of them met in the exam room. Let him go, you've already won. King, who entered the school field, said to the boy next to the huge ice ball. Yeah. Qishuang nodded, then released his hand on the ice ball, made a seal, and shouted softly, release. With the chakra that was just injected as a guide, the chakra composition in the ice ball was released. The round ice ball, which exuded a hint of coldness, collapsed inwards in an instant, like a collapsed domino. A pale, slightly shivering boy was revealed inside. Curious, Terumi squatted down beside him and carefully poked Zabuza's cheek with her finger. Hiss, it's so cold. She suddenly retracted her hand, as if she was stung by a snake or scorpion, turned around and looked at Qishuang, and said anxiously, he will be fine, right? Look at what you have frozen him into. After that, she glared at Qishuang fiercely. Nanashi shook his head and squatted down, putting one hand on Zabuza's back, using his ice attribute chakra to help dispel the cold, while explaining, the physique of a ninja is far stronger than that of an ordinary person. This alone is not enough to kill him. At most, it will just make him catch a cold for a few days. After that, he withdrew the chakra in his hand. As for the coldness on Zabuza's body, it had been almost dispelled. He only needed to rest for a while and he would be back to normal. Then, he put his index finger and middle finger together and stretched his hand in front of Zabuza. It was a seal of reconciliation. It was a sign that the battle between the two sides was over. Because he helped dispel the cold, Zabuza, who had recovered a lot of his condition, looked at the index finger and middle finger that were stretched out and did not respond immediately. Instead, he slowly sat up, looked at Nanashi and asked again, if you had not withdrawn from the exam and met me, how sure are you that you could kill me? He still couldn't get over that hurdle. That incident had become a knot in his heart. Do you even need to ask this? Terumi beside him interrupted heartlessly. From the current situation, even if you two met back then, you would probably have a smaller chance of winning. After all, you were all still children at that time, and you didn't know many combat skills. In this situation, what is tested is everyone's combat instinct. And in this regard, Qishuang is much better than you. Hearing this, Zabuza was unmoved and still stared at Qishuang, hoping to get a more accurate answer from the person involved. Seeing that he was still asking questions, Qishuang was somewhat helpless and sighed. At that time, I didn't even have the confidence to win you by 1 point. The ending can only be that I die and you live. Hearing this answer, King and Terumi beside him were surprised. They really didn't expect that Qishuang would be so deprecating about her past self. In their opinion, this modesty was a bit too much. Why? Zabuza frowned and asked. In his opinion, this answer was too fake. He couldn't believe that this genius who beat him completely didn't have the confidence to beat him by even 1 point back then. Could it be that after graduation, in just a few years, he suddenly grew up and surpassed him, a genius known as a demon? If that was true, then what was the point of his hard training over the years? Was it a joke? No reason. Qishuang replied expressionlessly. Some things are destined to be secrets buried forever, and he won't reveal a word. Terumi and King were shocked by such a crude explanation. Originally, they thought they could hear some reasonable reasons that made Qishuang believe that she was no match for Zabuza back then. Now it seems that Qishuang's words that she was no match for Zabuza back then were completely false and were used to comfort the other party. Zabuza also couldn't agree with this answer. To him, such a perfunctory answer was no different from pity and sympathy. This made him feel deeply humiliated. He slowly stood up from the pile of broken ice, stared into Qishuang's eyes, and said word by word, I don't need your pity and sympathy, liar. After that, Zabuza pushed away the seal of reconciliation in front of him, took deep and shallow steps, and squeezed out of the encirclement of 3 people. Just after taking 2 steps, he seemed to remember something again, and turned back coldly and said, I have seen the gap between us, so I will not challenge you without knowing my own ability. But our business today is not over yet. When I think I can defeat you, I will return all the pity and sympathy you gave me today. After saying that, he took a step and limped to the edge of the training ground. Captain, look at him. Before Terumi finished her words, she was interrupted by King. Forget it, he lost too thoroughly, he is not in a good mood, and it is normal to have some emotions. The masked young man waved his hand and smiled bitterly. After all, children are children. No matter how talented Zabuza is, he is still a child in his teens. It is normal to be upset because you lost the duel. Only Nana Frost felt that Zabuza was not upset because he lost the duel. La la la. Chapter 191 Hidden Dangers. Hey, what about the icy water array wall ninjutsu you just used? Does it work on all water-based ninjutsu? Watching Zabuza's back disappear at the edge of the training ground, King turned around and asked Qishuang solemnly, my ninjutsu? Qishuang was stunned for a moment, then slowly replied, the so-called ice is actually another form of water. Therefore, the water produced by the change of chakra properties naturally has the potential to transform into ice. but due to human factors, the water produced by the change of chakra properties will not be easily frozen into ice. However, after I mastered the solidification property of ice escape, I conducted in-depth research and amplified this property to the limit, exceeding the condensation property of ordinary ice, thus possessing the ability to freeze other people's water escape. After hearing what he said, Terumi suddenly said, "Could this be the result of your specialization?" "Yeah." Qishuang nodded, smiled confidently. "In terms of the solidification property, I have surpassed the limit of ordinary ice escape. In a sense, unless there is a ninja with special attainments in water escape, ordinary people will be completely restrained by my ice escape and have no room to play." King, who was standing by, was a little confused and didn't quite understand what the two were talking about. He just barely understood that Nanash's ice release had already surpassed the limit of ordinary ice release. "So, your ice release has already surpassed the bloodline limit?" Terumi asked doubtfully. She still remembered that the other party had said earlier that the path of specialization requires a long period of accumulation and cannot be achieved overnight. During the war, no one had time to study. Only after the truce and returning to Kirigakure did they have free time. Only half a year had passed since returning to Kirigakure. She hadn't even touched the threshold of the third chakra nature change, but Nanashi had already surpassed the bloodline limit. This made her a little suspicious. How long was the long time the other party was talking about? Seeing her surprised look, Qishuang immediately guessed what the girl was thinking, and immediately replied with a smile, "I have indeed surpassed the bloodline limit, but there is still a long way to go before the bloodline elimination. If the bloodline elimination is compared to 100 and the bloodline limit is compared to 10, my ice escape is only at the level of 11 or 12 now. You think too much." After saying that, he rubbed Terumi's head, causing her to dislike him. Beside him, although he was a little confused, King still understood that it was not an easy task to master the ice and water escape ninjutsu in Qishuang's hands. In addition, to perform such a ninjutsu, it is necessary to base it on the ice escape bloodline limit. This also led to that kind of ninjutsu could not be widely spread and promoted, and could only become Qishuang's personal exclusive secret technique. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then, he solemnly told the boy, "Don't use your ice freezing water style ninjutsu in front of others in the future. You should know how much impact a ninjutsu that completely restrains water style ninjutsu will have in a village that mainly relies on water style ninjutsu. If the Anbu thinks you are a great threat to the village, I don't need to tell you the consequences, right?" He looked at Qishuang deeply, his tone full of warning. Hearing this, Qishuang felt a chill on his back. Earlier, he was only concerned with research, thinking that he could use such results to restrain most of the water style ninjutsu, and he could run rampant in the village of Kirigakure and have fun as he pleased, but he forgot the darkness hidden under every village. Even a village like Konoha, which looks very decent, has set up an Anbu and will do whatever it takes to solve all people or things that threaten the village. And their Kirigakure, which is famous for killing, is even worse in this regard. Especially now that he is just a helpless child, he has no say in the Kirigakure. He could fully foresee the tragic end that would befall him after they discovered that his ice escape had a serious inhibitory effect on water escape. If he was lucky, he might die a quick death. If he was unlucky, he might become a living research material for the Anbu. You know, the Anbu of the Hidden Mist Village likes to collect all kinds of ninjutsu. Every year, some foreign ninjas disappear in the Hidden Mist Village, and that is the work of the Hidden Mist Anbu. The purpose is to torture them for their exclusive secrets. Although they have never admitted to attacking foreign ninjas, it has almost become an open secret. This is also the reason why there are many pedestrians in the Hidden Mist Village, but there are very few foreign ninjas. This place is too dangerous for foreign ninjas. Then, Qishuang made up his mind that he would never use the effect of ice and water escape at will before he had a certain say in the Hidden Mist Village. Even if he used it, he would make the witnesses shut up completely. And you? King looked at the girl next to him and solemnly warned, "If you don't want him to have any accidents, you'd better forget about his previous ice water escape. As for Zabuza, I'll go to him and remind him later." Hearing this, Terumi Mei blinked her green eyes and whispered, "Not really? Do they dare to attack Nanashiro? Why don't they dare?" King asked back, and then said, "The duty of the Anbu is to resolve all potential threats to the village. They are not the same kind of people as ordinary ninjas like us." Looking at the captain's sharp warning eyes, Terumi Mei shrank slightly and nodded. "Okay, I remember." Then, the three of them left the training ground together. On the other side, after bringing Yagura back, the third Mizukage made some preparations and held a high-level meeting. He rested his elbows on the table, looked at the people sitting below, and said expressionlessly, "My health is getting worse and worse. Konoha, Sand Village, and Kumogakure have chosen the fourth cage. I know you can't wait any longer. So, the purpose of my meeting today is to discuss the candidate for the next Mizukage. Ahem." After saying this, the third Hokage's energy and spirit seemed to be drained away, and he was a lot more depressed. The position of Mizukage is the source of his belief that has kept him going until now. Now, he is about to step down, and without the support of this belief, he feels that he will die at any time. As soon as the voice fell, a council member sneered twice, looked at him and said, "Since you are so tactful, it saves us a lot of effort. We can keep the last dignity of Mizukage for you. The matter has been made clear, and he is too lazy to pretend to be obedient. The rule of Kirigakure is that the strong are respected. The third Hokage is about to die, but he still occupies the position of Mizukage. They have long been dissatisfied. Originally, everyone was thinking of taking advantage of the opportunity of the third generation's meeting to bring up the selection of the next Mizukage and force the third generation to abdicate. But now it seems that this is no longer necessary. Chapter 192 Meeting, Part 1. Since the third generation has taken the initiative to bring this up today, I guess he has already found a candidate, right? Another counselor asked politely, not as recklessly as the previous one. In any case, the third generation is still the Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village, representing the image of the entire Hidden Mist Village. Even at the end of the day, he is not someone who can be despised. To bully him is tantamount to slapping everyone in the face. At this time, those guys who jumped out to disrespect the third generation have probably lost the support of the people and have been branded as stupid by everyone present. It is simply a joke that they don't even have this little bit of patience and want to get involved in the fight for the position of Mizukage. Ahem. The third generation covered his mouth and coughed twice, then slowly said, "I already have a candidate, so I want to hear if you have any objections. If you do, of course we have objections." Before he finished speaking, the previous person jumped out again impatiently. The rest of the people who had been silent couldn't help but curse inwardly. Idiot. Such an impatient guy is destined to fail. Then, everyone heard him say confidently, "We have also chosen a candidate. Whether in terms of strength or qualifications, he is fully qualified to succeed the fourth Mizukage." The third generation listened, slowly glanced at everyone, frowned and asked, "Have you all reached an agreement? If everyone below has the same support target, then things will be troublesome. Even if Yagura can use the power of the Three Tails to forcibly ascend to the throne, without the support of these people, there will be great obstacles in leading the Hidden Mist Village in the future. Sorry, my Kizuki clan doesn't know about this. Moreover, my Kizuki clan also has its own candidate to support." The head of the Kizuki clan rolled his eyes at the counselor and said. The man was so angry that he blew his beard and glared, but he could do nothing. The Kizuki clan is one of the largest families in the Hidden Mist Village. Whether in terms of strength or influence, it ranks among the best in the village. It is the target that everyone who aspires to the position of Mizukage needs to win over. Unlike the third generation, who is about to step down and is about to die. Even if you can't win them over, you can't offend them. The position of Mizukage, our Hashigaki clan does not want to participate. Following the Hazuki clan, the head of the Hashigaki clan also expressed his attitude and continued, "In this war against Konoha, our Hashigaki clan suffered heavy casualties and needs to recuperate. You can fight however you want, just don't come to our Hashigaki clan. Just notify us when the fourth generation Mizukage takes office, and it will be done. We all support whoever succeeds the position of Mizukage." The fight for the position of Mizukage was another bloody storm as usual. He did not want to put the remaining strength of the Hashigaki clan into this boring fight. If one careless mistake led to the loss of the elite of the clan, the future of the Hoshigaki clan would be worrying. The third generation, who was sitting at the top, heard the answer of the head of the Hoshigaki clan, and nodded gently. He was very satisfied with the choice of the Hoshigaki clan. It not only preserved the elite of the Hidden Mist village, but also added potential support objects for Yagura's promotion. If possible, he hoped that other families would not easily participate in the fight for the position of Mizukage, just like the Hoshigaki family. However, the position of Mizukage represents the highest power in Kirigakure. Once it can be won, it will naturally bring convenience and development in various aspects to each family. Not everyone is willing to give up easily, and the people present are not saints, and they all have their own selfish desires. It is impossible to let everyone give up the fight and calmly choose a candidate that everyone agrees on. In the end, except for the Hazuki family and the Hoshigaki family who made clear statements, the other family forces all laughed and avoided the important issues. They neither expressed support for any party nor expressed their willingness to withdraw from the fight. This made the third generation very distressed. In the hearts of these people, they all have their own calculations, or take advantage of the situation, to blackmail those who are interested in the position of Mizukage, or want to roll up their sleeves and fight for it. No one has ever really considered Kirigakure. In this regard, Kirigakure is far behind the other 4 villages. After a long while, the third generation solemnly said to everyone, "Okay, since everyone has different opinions, let's follow the rules, and hold the Mizukage battle. In the end, the strongest person who wins will be the successor to the Mizukage. You have no objection, right?" After saying that, he slowly glanced at everyone. Second. Everyone nodded in agreement, and without any hesitation, they agreed to the proposal to hold a battle. This is the fastest proposal passed since the third generation took office. It is really a pity. Then, he looked at the counselor who had spoken rudely to him earlier and asked, "I'm curious, who is the next Mizukage candidate you support?" When the man heard him discussing the Mizukage, he couldn't help but jump out first. This shows that the person they chose has considerable strength, which would make a politician who often participates in high-level meetings get carried away. Hearing the third generation's question, everyone present also cast a curious look. They were also very curious about what kind of candidate could make a veteran politician lose his composure, and lose all his composure. Facing everyone's gaze, the man smiled proudly. "The candidate we picked is the last 7 ninja swordsman, the holder of the big sword Samehada, Zigwashin Puffer Demon. I think, with his strength, there are few people in the entire Kirigakure who can compete with him. In terms of qualifications, he has been in Kirigakure for quite a while. Could it be that you can find a more suitable candidate than him?" After saying that, he could no longer suppress the pride in his heart, and laughed out loud. The 7 ninja swordsmen are known as the strongest under the Mizukage, and among the 7 ninja sword users, the holder of the big sword Samehada is the most difficult one. But at this moment in Kirigakure, 4 of the 7 ninja sword users died in battle, 2 fled, and only Zigwashin Puffer Demon was left. He really couldn't think of anyone else who could match him. As long as he and the forces behind him support Puffer Demon to take the position, they would be the biggest contributors, redistribute the power in Kirigakure, and get what they dreamed of. Hearing this, everyone's faces turned ugly. They were all people who stood at the top of power in the Hidden Mist village. They naturally knew more about the 7 ninja swordsmen than ordinary people. Although the title of the 7 ninja swordsmen as the strongest under the Mizukage was a bit exaggerated, it did not mean that the strength of the 7 ninja swordsmen was exaggerated. On the contrary, they knew very well that the strength of the 7 people was the top masters in the Hidden Mist village. Especially the big sword Samehada, which has the ability to absorb the opponent's chakra and transfer it to the holder, is a tough guy who gets stronger with each battle. Now, its holder, Zigwashin Puffer Ghost, is participating in the battle for the position of Mizukage, and it is hard to find an opponent. Chapter 193 Meeting, Part 2. Hearing this name, the top 3 generations were very calm. It was not beyond his expectation that the guys below brought up the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon. Originally, Puffer Demon was born in the 7 ninja swordsmen, and both in terms of strength and qualifications, he was very suitable to succeed the position of Mizukage. But as a Mizukage, how could he not know what kind of character the guys under him were? The 7 ninja swordsmen of this term were not good people, they were cruel and murderous. Once they were allowed to sit on the position of Mizukage, I'm afraid that the Hidden Mist village would not be at peace. This is also one of the reasons why he did not choose Puffer Demon at the beginning, but chose Yagura as a successor. After all, Yagura is still a child and has room for growth. As long as he arranges people to support him, he should not grow up crooked. Unlike Puffer Demon, he has already been fixed and cannot be rescued. The head of the Hazuki clan also looked calm. Those who noticed this detail were silently thinking about what kind of trump card the Hazuki clan had prepared. Facing the only ninja swordsman, he was actually indifferent. Silence. Seeing that the discussion in the meeting room was getting more and more lively because of Zigwish and Puffer Ghost, the 3rd generation knocked on the table and said, "Since the proposal for the battle for the Mizukage has been passed, let's pick a time." The arrogant guy who first provoked him has revealed his trump card, which did not exceed his expectations. He can finally put down his hanging heart. As for the other side, the 3rd generation is not very worried about the Hazuki clan who clearly expressed their participation in the war. Although it is unknown what trump cards they have prepared to dare to compete with the holder of Samehada. At this time, the only remaining ninja sword user in the Hidden Mist village, Zigwish Puffer Ghost, has become the #1 master. No matter what, the Hazuki clan can't find a stronger person. So, he is very relieved. With the strength of Yagura's perfect Jinchuriki, there will be no opponent in the Hidden Mist village. Then, a counselor said, "I heard that Konoha will hold the inauguration ceremony of the 4th Hokage at the end of this year, and the inauguration time of the 4th Raikage of the Hidden Cloud village will be about the same. We in the Hidden Mist village cannot fall behind them, so why not also set the time for the battle for the Mizukage at the end of the year?" That's perfect, and there are still about 3 months from now to the end of the year, which is enough time for us to prepare. As soon as the voice fell, everyone below echoed, "Second. Second." Seeing that everyone was so united, the 3rd Hokage had no objection and immediately said, "Well, the battle for the position of Mizukage will be set at the end of the year, in early December. Ahem." As he spoke, he covered his mouth and coughed a few times. Seeing this, the counselor who had provoked the Mizukage earlier asked with a fake smile, "Who is the candidate that the 3rd generation has chosen? It would be such a pity if he is accidentally killed by the pufferfish demon." As he said this, he squeezed out a bit of regret and continued, "Why don't you introduce me to the 3rd generation? I will go back and tell the pufferfish demon to remember to hold back and give the Mizukage some face." Ha ha ha. After saying this, he laughed triumphantly again. It seemed that he had already seen the pufferfish demon holding Samehada and killing everyone in the battle, and the 3rd generation was in great pain. The 3rd generation remained calm and whispered, "The person I have chosen is called Yagura Karatachi, and he is a current Three Tails Jinchuriki. Now, he can initially control the power of the Three Tails. I'm afraid you can't kill him with just Samehada." After saying this, he shook his head slightly. Regarding Yagura, he only selectively revealed a part of it and did not reveal the fact that Yagura had become a perfect Jinchuriki. After all, others would definitely be curious about someone who was favored by the Mizukage. It would not be difficult to find out about Yagura's existence. In order to avoid unnecessary harassment and to calm the hearts of those followers, he revealed a little bit of it. Jinchuriki? Hearing the answer of the 3rd generation, the people below were also shocked. Although the Jinchuriki's combat power is not small, there is no precedent for a Jinchuriki to serve as the cage of a village in the 5 major villages. Therefore, they were very surprised by the 3rd generation's bold choice. What surprised them even more was that the three-tailed Jinchuriki was only created half a year ago. After such a short period of time, the Jinchuriki has adapted to the existence of the tailed beasts and can use the power of the tailed beasts. This talent is really terrible. HMPH. The provocative counselor snorted coldly, saying in a cowardly manner, "What's the matter with being a Jinchuriki? It's just that he has more chakra. The Fuguki has Samehada in his hand, so it's useless, even if he has more chakra. With the characteristic of Samehada absorbing chakra, the more chakra the opponent has, the stronger the Fuguki will become. However, because the Jinchuriki has a strong vitality and his own combat power is not bad, it is a bit troublesome for the Fuguki to kill him in the battle. I remember that the three-tailed Jinchuriki was still a child of 13 or 14 years old. Is it really appropriate to put him in the battle like this? Third generation? The head of the Hoshigaki clan asked the Mizukage in surprise. Hearing this, the counselor's face suddenly relaxed a lot. He almost forgot that the current three-tailed Jinchuriki was still a child. Compared with the experienced Fuguki, there was a world of difference. Even if he had some power of the tailed beast, he would definitely not be the opponent of the Fuguki. The Sandaime coughed twice and said slowly, even if he only initially controlled the power of the three tails, it was enough to save his life. If he really died in the battle, there would be nothing we could do. You can find another opportunity to change the Jinchuriki. Seeing that he was so nonchalant, everyone stopped talking. Just treated as satisfying the Sandaime's last willfulness and let him happily abdicate. As for the Jinchuriki, if he dies, he dies. As long as the Three Tails does not escape the control of the Hidden Mist Village, we can just change him. It's a pity for Yagiragoji. It will be difficult for the Hidden Mist Village to find another Jinchuriki with such talent. Do you have anything else to add about the battle for the Mizukage? The Sandaime asked again. Everyone was silent. As long as the matter is settled, the rest are trivial matters. Seeing this, the Sandaime had to wave his hand. Dismiss. Then, he slowly stood up and left the meeting room with two assistants. Manu, let's go. After everyone left one after another, the chief of the Ghostlight tribe, who had been silent all this time, called the boy behind him, and then went to the exit of the meeting room. On the way back, after glancing around and finding that there was no third person, the chief of the Ghostlight tribe whispered to the boy next to him, "Did you hear clearly what they said in the meeting room today?" "I heard it clearly." The gray-haired boy nodded. The chief of the Ghostlight tribe continued, "This time, the biggest opponent that blocks us from competing for the position of Mizukage should be the Zigguishin Puffer Demon and Goji Yagura." Chapter 194 Ambition. As for the others, there are no stronger ones than these two guys in the Hidden Mist Village. I think the other people who are involved in the competition are not a concern. After saying that, the head of the Hazuki clan showed a confident smile. The Hazuki clan has a secret technique called Water Transformation Technique. With the secret technique, they have the ability to be completely immune to physical damage. On the battlefield, the survival rate of the Hazuki clan ninjas is much higher than that of other Hidden Mist ninjas. It is also because of this secret technique that the casualties of the Hazuki clan in this war are far lower than those of other major clans, which is why they have the confidence to compete for the position of Mizukage. I remember there is another six-tailed Jinchuriki in the village. Father? Manu asked in surprise. As the son of the clan leader, he is the next clan leader of the Hazuki clan, so he is qualified to follow the clan leader to participate in the high-level meetings of the Hidden Mist Village. However, he is still inexperienced, so he can only watch from the side and has no room to interrupt. Forget about that six-tailed Jinchuriki. The head of the Hazuki clan waved his hands repeatedly and said nonchalantly that Jinchuriki can't even suppress the six tails chakra, and the Kirigakure needs people to guard him. Once he is released, if he suddenly goes berserk, it will be a lot of fun. Besides, that little guy is less than 10 years old and has just graduated from the ninja school. He has almost no combat experience. Even if he has the six tails, it's useless. After saying this, he shook his head again and sighed. Although the Kirigakure has the six tails Jinchuriki, it is not enough to form a combat force in a short period of time. It's like a fruit that has just grown, not yet fully ripe, and can only be seen, not eaten. So, we only need to concentrate on dealing with the three tails Jinchuriki and Samehuda in the hands of the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon. That's enough. Manu said while walking, holding his chin. Yeah. The head of the Hazuki clan sighed and continued. Unfortunately, both Yagura of Gojira and Pufferfish of Zigguishin are not easy opponents. The Samehuda in the hands of the Pufferfish of Zigguishin can absorb the opponent's chakra and transform it into himself. He is not afraid of protracted battles and large-scale melees. He is a guy who gets stronger as he fights. It just so happens that the battlefield for the Mizukage does not have too many rules and restrictions. It is a melee, which seems to be designed for him. and the three-tailed Jinchuriki Yagura, although the old guy of the third Hokage only said that he can initially control the power of the tailed beasts, this alone is not enough for the old guy to bet on him. I suspect that Yagura's control over the power of the tailed beasts is far more than just initial control. It is very likely that he can already control a large part of the power of the tailed beasts. Seeing his worried look, Manu next to him said confidently, "Don't worry, father, no matter how strong they are, I will defeat them one by one and ascend to the position of Mizukage. Push our Hazuki clan to the top again and become the strongest clan in Kirigakure." Hearing his son's words, the head of the Hazuki clan showed a gratified smile, patted the boy's shoulder gently, and said earnestly, "Confidence is not something that can be said with the mouth, but something that can be killed with the hands. How are your four swords practicing?" he asked again. "Very good." Hazuki Manayu nodded heavily and replied confidently, "Those four swords, I feel like they are born for me. Every time I hold them, I feel a sense of flesh and blood connection. Just like my own hands and feet, it is very smooth and natural to use, without the slightest sense of awkwardness. I suspect that I can use the other 3 ninja swords as freely as these 4. It's a pity that we only have 4 swords and can't try." As he said this, a trace of regret appeared on the boy's face. "If it is true as you guessed, and none of the 7 ninja swords reject you, then it's such a pity." The head of the Kid clan sighed helplessly and continued, "Among the 2 defected ninja sword users, the one in the hands of Kirigakure is none other than the Thunder Sword Ge, which has the power to control lightning. And the 3-tailed Isabuki relies mainly on water jutsu, so its Jinchuriki naturally relies mainly on water jutsu as well. With the characteristics of Thunder Water, if you have the Thunder Sword Ge in your hand, you can increase your chances of winning by at least 30% when facing the 3-tailed Jinchuriki. As a mist ninja, Ziguishin Pufferfish Ghost is best at water jutsu. If you have the Thunder Sword Ge, you can also increase your chances of winning against him." "What a pity, what a pity." Chief of the Hazuki clan sighed and shook his head repeatedly. Ever since Kirigakure retreated from the battlefield last time, he has not been seen since. Even the intelligence network of the Hidden Mist Village has not been able to find his trace. It is impossible for them to get back Thunderblade before the battle for the Mizukage begins. Hearing this, Manu's eyes lit up, and he said to him excitedly, "Thank you father for reminding me. I have found a way to deal with the 3-tailed Jinchuriki." Chief of the Hazuki clan turned his head in surprise and asked in confusion, "What did you say?" "I found a way to deal with the 3-tailed Jinchuriki." Manu smiled confidently, revealing his white triangular fangs, and said slowly, "Among the 7 ninja swords, in addition to the Thunderblade that has the ability to restrain the 3-tails, the big sword Samehada also has the effect of restraining the Jinchuriki. The biggest advantage of the Jinchuriki is that they have almost endless chakra, and Samehada happens to have the ability to absorb chakra and transfer it to the holder. Therefore, when facing a Jinchuriki, the holder of Samehada will only become stronger and stronger, while the Jinchuriki will become weaker and weaker." "You mean, lure the Ziguishin Puffer Demon to attack Goji Yagura, and then we wait for an opportunity to profit?" Chief Kido asked tentatively. "No, that's not what I mean." Manu shook his head and continued, "The Puffer Demon has been roaming the water country for so many years and is experienced. This simple trick can't be hidden from him. Besides, with Samehada's ability, once he absorbs a huge amount of chakra from the 3-tailed Jinchuriki, we will be self-defeating. By then, we are no match for him at all." "What do you mean?" Chief Kido continued to ask. Manu stopped, looked at his father's puzzled eyes, and said word by word, "First break Samehada, then kill Yagura. As long as I can get Samehada, it will be much easier to deal with the 3-tailed Jinchuriki." Hearing his son's intention, the head of the Hazuki clan said worriedly, "The pufferfish demon has been famous for a long time, and with Samehada in hand, it is not much easier to deal with than the 3-tailed Jinchuriki. Are you so sure to defeat him?" "Yes." Manu nodded and said solemnly, "The most difficult part of the pufferfish demon is that it uses Samehada to absorb the opponent's chakra, and 3 of the 4 ninja swords in my hand are purely physical attacks, which are very restrained from his Samehada. As long as I pay attention and don't give him the opportunity to absorb chakra, I have at least a 60% chance of defeating him. Chapter 195 Surge. But, if we just leave the three-tailed Jinchuriki alone and prioritize dealing with the pufferfish demon, won't someone take advantage of us? Said the Hazuki clan leader worriedly. No. Man Yu shook his head and took another step, saying as he walked, because he never thought that I would go after the pufferfish demon right at the beginning. By the time he realizes, I think I should have gotten some ahead. What? Hearing his son say this, the Hazuki clan leader was shocked. Isn't it too hasty to attack the pufferfish demon right at the beginning? He quickly caught up and asked in surprise. No, not hasty at all. Man Yu shook his head again and said solemnly, because Samehada absorbs chakra, the pufferfish ghost will only become stronger as the battle goes on. Although the battlefield of the battle for the Mizukage is complicated, and the situation is chaotic, in his eyes, those guys are all human-shaped chakra absorption sources. If he can't be solved as soon as possible, the longer the time is delayed, the stronger he will be, and the more difficult to deal with. If you want to get Samehada, the sooner the better. Hearing this, the head of the Hazuki clan was thoughtful, and after thinking for a while, he said, in this case, I will send the elite of the clan to hold back Kirigakure and buy you time. There are not too many rules for the battle for the Mizukage. You only need to kill all the participants to surrender and become the undisputed strongest, that is the Mizukage. And the strongest person is not one-on-one, according to the general rules of the competition, and is caught in a competition, and is beaten, but in a chaotic situation, he kills a bloody road and kills all those who refuse to obey. Therefore, there is no restriction on single or group fights in the battle. After all, the so-called strongest person, whether facing a single fight or a group fight, should be the strongest, not the strongest person in a single fight, selected by ridiculous competition rules. Therefore, the fighting power of each Mizukage has extremely high gold content, and the road to the position of Mizukage was paved with countless corpses and blood. This is also one of the reasons why the third generation is old and the people below dare not force it. After all, the third generation was also a strong man who fought his way to the position of Mizukage in full view of the public. Based on this point, the first generation set a rule that in the battle, the major families can send their own forces to assess the Mizukage competitors in a group fight. But the purpose of the battle is to select the strongest mist ninja to succeed the Mizukage, not for unnecessary internal consumption. In order to control the scale of the battle, the first generation also limited each faction to only allow a maximum of 100 people to enter, and those competitors for the position of Mizukage must act alone and pass the test of the faction with personal force. Even so, with dozens of families of all sizes in the Kirigakure village, plus some guys who overestimate their own strength and hope for the best, every battle for the Mizukage is a large-scale melee with thousands of people. It can be regarded as a rare grand event in the Kirigakure village. After all, the change of Mizukage is not something you can see every few years. The Ziguishan pufferfish ghost has been famous for a long time. With the power of our Kizuna clan, it should not be difficult to find out his detailed information, but that Goji Yagura is very unfamiliar. I hope my father can send someone to find out his details before the war, so that I can be prepared. Man Yu walked side by side with the Kizuna clan leader and said seriously, you don't have to tell me about this. I will also send someone to investigate. The head of the Hazuki clan crossed his arms and thought, the old guy of the third generation actually bet on a child who has just become a Jinchuriki for less than a year. If I don't get to know the boy's background, I'm really worried. And you should not go out during this period. Stay at home and master the use of the 4 ninja swords, wait for the battle to start, and leave the rest to the clan. Yes. Man Yu responded heavily, and then the father and son disappeared at the corner of the street. On the other side, Ziguishan Puffer Ghost, who did not have time to attend the meeting, also received a message from his companions, and learned the content of the council. The old guy of the third generation actually didn't plan to support me to become the Mizukage. How abominable. He tore the letter into pieces, and in anger, he pulled out the bandage weapon behind him, and smashed it at a big tree next to him. Cap. There was a loud noise, and the big tree, which was as thick as a waist, was broken in one fell swoop by the giant bandage weapon in his hand. He originally thought that, since 6 out of the 7 ninja swordsmen had died, leaving only him, and there was no one more suitable than him in the Hidden Mist village, the 3rd generation should support him. But he never thought that the old man would rather choose a child than support him. It was really abominable. Then, he glanced in the direction of the Hidden Mist village and muttered, so what if he is a Jinkriki? He is still just food for Samehada in my hand. Just wait and see. No one can stop me from becoming the Mizukage. After saying that, he spat fiercely on the ground, then took a step, and walked forward along the road. The tall and round figure soon disappeared at the end of the road. Only the stumps and broken trees on the roadside were left, lying quietly on the ground, telling what had just happened. On the other side, after the meeting, the 3rd generation instructed his assistant beside him, send more people to watch over Yagura, and don't let anyone fight with him casually. He revealed his willingness to support Yagura, and others would definitely be very curious. Especially those forces that aspire to be the Mizukage will definitely send people to test Yagura's background. He is not worried that Yagura will be hurt by those people, but he is worried that Yagura's strength will be exposed too much, which will increase the variables in the battle. Therefore, the best way to deal with it is to avoid Yagura fighting with others as much as possible. Yes, the assistant responded, and then disappeared in an instant, rushing to arrange manpower. The 3rd generation looked at the empty position next to him, and thought for a while, then turned his head, and walked in another direction. Where are you going, sir? Asked the only remaining assistant next to him. Go see Yagura, the 3rd generation said as he walked. He was still not at ease just to strengthen the guard. After all, people always have a nap. There are still nearly 3 months before the battle starts. He can't guarantee that the Mist Ninja guards can stop every guy who goes to test in such a long time. He thinks it is safer to give instructions to Yagura himself. Soon, he brought his assistant to the new residence for Yagura, which was a small courtyard. Boom. Before he walked in, he heard a loud noise from inside, and then a figure smashed through the wall, fell to the side of the road, struggled twice, and then did not move again. It seems that he should be dead. These guys are really not slow at all. Looking at the motionless figure, the 3rd generation sighed helplessly. The battle for the Mizukage has just been decided, and Yagura's death is obviously not a coincidence. It should be a guy deliberately sent by other forces to test Yagura. Chapter 196 Entrustment. Unfortunately, with Yagura's perfect Jinkriki status, not everyone can find out the truth. This guy died in vain. Upon discovering this sudden movement, dozens of Kirigakure and Bu rushed out from various shadow corners, and rushed to the side of the deceased. Meet the 3rd Mizukage. Everyone saluted. The 3rd took a deep look at everyone and said meaningfully, you didn't know that someone sneaked in quietly. I really doubt whether someone of you let him in on purpose. Although the Anbu is a direct force of the village, it only listens to the dispatch of Kirigakure and is not mobilized by major family forces, but a considerable number of Anbu members inside are also personnel from major family forces. With these people as internal support, it is not too difficult to let someone in to contact Yagura. Hearing this, the Anbu members looked at each other, and there was silence. At this moment, a thin figure appeared in the gap in the wall. Then, a young man dressed in light green clothes and carrying a hook stick-like weapon appeared in everyone's eyes. Lord Mizukage, why are you here too? The man asked with a little surprise when he saw the bamboo hat with the word water on it. The Sandai nodded slightly and then said to the Anbu ninjas, deal with the body and return to your respective posts. After that, he waved his hand, and several Anbu ninjas lifted the body swiftly and disappeared into the shadow of the house with the others. Killing people doesn't need to make such a big noise, right? The Sandai covered his mouth with one hand and coughed twice, and pointed at the big hole in the wall with the other hand. If possible, he hoped that Yagura would not be so conspicuous, and wait until the battle began in a low-key manner, before making a splash. You can't blame me for this. Yagura shrugged and said with an innocent look on his face, it was that guy who insisted on competing with me, saying that he wanted to measure my strength. Since he asked so, of course I won't be polite, I will show him a little bit. So, you just demolished a wall? The Sandai asked with a dark face. Yagura lowered his head, fiddling with a broken brick at his feet, and said timidly, I didn't expect that he was so weak that he fell down with just a little effort. Just a little effort? The Sandaike's eyelids twitched, and he asked again, how much tailed beast power did you use? 1/10. Yagura slowly raised his index finger and said in a low voice, I don't believe it. The Sandaike said with a tiger face. The unfortunate dead man who was sent to test the details of a jinkriki, no matter how weak he was, would not be lower than the level of a jonin. After all, it is no different for a ninja below a jonin to face a jinkriki. Since those guys want to obtain Yagura's information, they naturally hope that the person they sent can return safely with the information. Therefore, the level of the person who came is at least a jonin. And a jonin facing a jinkriki, no matter what, will not be unable to withstand even 1/10 of the tailed beast power. What's more, Yagura just did not completely transform into a tailed beast. The 1/10 of the tailed beast power in this human form has extremely limited destructive power. That person would not be killed in one blow. Seeing that the Sandaike was pressing him, Yagura felt guilty and immediately raised 2 fingers and whispered, it should be 30%. I just used 30% of my strength. Tell the truth. Seeing his eyes flickering, the Sandaike guessed that Yagura was hiding something. After all, children are just children. It is difficult for them to lie like adults without blushing or beating their hearts. Being annoyed by the Sandaike's questioning, Yagura waved his hands and said impatiently, okay. I just used 50% of my strength and killed him with one move. Are you satisfied now? Seeing his appearance, the Sandaike didn't want to continue asking questions. Seeing that more and more people were watching around, he immediately said, let's go in and talk. After that, he took Yagura and his assistant through the gap in the courtyard wall and went in. Why did the old man think of me here today? Yagura lay on a stone table in the courtyard and asked the Sandaike Mizukage in surprise. The Sandaike sat down on a stone bench nearby and said slowly, the time for the Mizukage battle has been set. It will be in early December. I have already informed everyone that you will participate in the battle as a Mizukage competitor. Hearing this, Yagura jumped up with joy. That's great. He counted on his fingers. It's the end of August now, and there are September, October, and November, a total of 3 months. There are still 3 months left, and the Mizukage battle will begin. Seeing the young man's excited and eager look, the Sandaike sighed and said slowly, yes, there are only 3 months left. After 3 months, I will step down as the Mizukage. Although he was not greedy for power, he suddenly realized that he was about to let go and leave the position he had been in for countless years, and he was still a little reluctant. Then, he sent away the assistant beside him, and when there was no one else in the courtyard, he whispered to the boy, to what extent have you controlled the power of the tailed beast? Yagura raised the corner of his mouth and said proudly, with the help of Isage, I have become more and more proficient in the application of the power of the tailed beast. I feel that I'm getting stronger every day, and my overall condition is better than ever. In fact, with the help of Isage, I have practiced a lot of powerful ninjutsu. Do you want to try it, old man? As he said that, he took a stance, looking impatient. No. Seeing this, the third generation waved his hands again and again, and smiled bitterly, my body can't stand your tossing. You'd better save your energy, and have a good fight on the day of the battle. Seeing that the third generation was unwilling to fight with him, Yagura wiped the tip of his nose, with a look of reluctance on his face, and had no choice but to return to the stone bench helplessly. Seeing that he was unhappy, the third generation hurried to comfort him. Don't be sad. From now on, until the battle begins, people will come to you one after another to fight. Just like that guy just now. Hearing his words, Yagura immediately became interested and asked with a smile, is it true? Yes. The third generation nodded helplessly and solemnly warned, but you must remember that, if you want to successfully defeat everyone in the battle, you must conserve your strength and let them be confused about the situation. Then, it will completely explode in the battle and give them a big surprise. So, when someone comes to you to fight in the future, remember not to use your full strength. Facing the serious look of the third generation, Yagura nodded heavily. I know. I will use 30% of the power of the tailed beast to deal with them in the future. In fact, there is another reason why he agreed so readily. He was afraid that he would show too much power and scare others, and no one would take the initiative to come to his house to play with him in the future. I kind of regret writing about Yagura's promotion. Because Qishuang and the others don't have many scenes, and we can't force them to play more, and because of the foreshadowing in the previous part, if we wrap it up too hastily, it will feel like the plot is broken. It's uncomfortable. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, Separation. At the entrance of the village, Nanashi and Meditarumi were carrying their luggage and waiting patiently. They were informed by the captain that the team was assigned an escort mission and asked to gather at the entrance of the village. Just when the two were getting impatient, a thin young man with an eye mask appeared at the end of the street. Here they come. Meditarumi's eyes lit up, and she pointed at the young man and said to the boy next to her. Nanashi looked in the direction of the voice, only to see King walking slowly towards the entrance of the village. However, to his surprise, the captain did not carry any luggage. When the young man with an eye mask approached, Meditarumi complained immediately, "Captain, why are you so slow today? And there is no sign of Zabuza until now." In addition to the late team leader King, Zabuza from the same team did not arrive either. Sorry. King scratched his head and smiled awkwardly. The higher-ups said that you two are already capable enough to carry out missions alone, and you don't need me as the captain. Besides, due to the losses in the previous war, the village is short of manpower, and the higher-ups have assigned me an extra task. So, from now on, unless there are special circumstances, I will not carry out missions with you. Hearing this news, Qishuang and the other two were shocked. Although they had long known that the team members would have a day to act independently, and King, as the captain, would not always take them on missions, when this day really came, they were still a little caught off guard. Just like a young eagle that was driven out of the nest just after it had grown feathers, it always felt a little reluctant. Seeing that the two were in a low mood, King smiled and encouraged. Every ninja has a day to be independent. You don't need to be so sad and worried. With your strength and survival experience on the battlefield, I believe you can complete every mission beautifully. This is the scroll for this mission. Give it to Qishuang for safekeeping. As he said, he took out a scroll from his pocket and threw it to the boy beside him. The handover of the scroll also means the handover of the team's leadership. In his team, Qishuang is the one he is most satisfied with. Although the strength of the three team members is almost the same, and they are all excellent, Qishuang, who has the most calm personality and the most experienced behavior, is undoubtedly the most suitable candidate to lead the team. Steadily catching the scroll thrown by the leader, Qishuang asked in surprise, "Zabuza hasn't come yet, Captain, do you know what's going on?" Hearing him talking about another teammate, Terumi Mei also hurriedly asked, Yes. Do you know where Zabuza went, Captain? He won't come again." King sighed and replied helplessly, Both of them were stunned for a moment. "What's the matter, Captain?" Terumi Mei frowned and asked. Qishuang also pricked up her ears and waited patiently for the captain's explanation. Gently shaking his head, looking at the boy again, King smiled bitterly and replied, "Since he lost the duel with you last time, he came to me and begged me to write him a transfer application. I really couldn't persuade him, so I wrote it for him." "Transfer order? Where does he want to go?" Terumi Mei asked hurriedly. "Personnel changes are transfer orders." Zabuza found the captain and asked for a transfer order, which means that Zabuza is ready to leave their team. "It's the Anbu," King replied in a heavy tone. "Every village has a unit that cannot be seen in the light, and that is the Anbu. Anbu members always carry out the dirtiest tasks and do things that cannot be seen in the light. That is the darkest place in the village. Compared with other villages, the Kirigakure Anbu is even worse, and it is a notorious existence in the ninja world. If possible, he doesn't want his team members to enter that kind of place. Anbu, he can't just enter if he wants to, right?" Terumi Mei said doubtfully. Even she knew that the Kirigakure was the most mysterious unit in the village. They never recruited people publicly, and all arrangements were made by the higher-ups. With the captain's power, it was impossible to arrange for Zabuza to enter the Anbu. King nodded and said, "Of course it's not that easy to enter the Anbu. The application for transfer I wrote for him is just a stepping stone. After the higher-ups approve it, the Anbu will assess him. Only after he passes the assessment will he be eligible to enter the Anbu." "Did the higher-ups approve him?" Mediterumi asked in surprise. King smiled bitterly and said, "Because of the casualties in the war, there is a shortage of manpower in various parts of the village. They want to split one person into two people to use, and the Anbu is naturally short of people. So, the higher-ups quickly approved his application for transfer to the Anbu. With his strength, it shouldn't be a problem for him to pass the Anbu assessment, right?" Qishuang said in a complicated tone. Kirigakure village advocates killing, so he could easily guess with his toes that the so-called Anbu assessment would definitely not be a boring writing test. "I'm afraid it should be a naked test of force. Although Zabuza lost to him, it does not mean that Zabuza is not strong enough. With his strength far exceeding that of a Chunin, it should not be a problem for him to pass the assessment of the Anbu. Moreover, with Zabuza's style of doing things, he is indeed very suitable for the Anbu. I think the Anbu should be happy to accept such a demon. Last week, he passed the assessment of the Anbu and became a Kirigakure Anbu. Therefore, unless there are special circumstances in the future, he will not carry out missions with you," King said with a sigh. "After all, everyone is a companion who has walked through the flames of war together. Now half of them are gone, which really makes him feel uncomfortable. Is that so?" Hearing that the matter has been settled, Mediterumi is helpless and a little depressed. Seeing this, King sent him away again. "Okay, I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. There are 2 less people in the team. When you carry out missions in the future, remember to be careful." After giving another reminder, he turned around and left slowly. When the leader's figure disappeared around the corner, Qishuang waved the scroll in his hand and said to the sad girl next to him, "Let's go." "Yeah." Mediterumi responded softly. Then, the 2 of them left the village with mixed feelings. This mission was an escort commission. There was a merchant who was going to sell goods in Kirigakure village. But because of the long years of war and the previous civil strife in Kirigakure village, Kirigakure's strength was greatly damaged, and its control over the land of water seriously declined. Bandits, robbers, vagrants, and rebellious ninjas took advantage of the situation, and the security of the entire land of water fell to the bottom. For the safety of himself and his property, he had to ask Kirigakure village for help, and issued an escort mission to protect their caravan, to arrive safely in Kirigakure. After 3 days of hard travel, Qishuang and his team finally arrived at the town, where the merchant was. "I say, you are such a fool. Why do you have to go to our hidden mist village? It's such a long journey and the road is dangerous. You might as well sell it in the nearby cities." Mediterumi pointed at the carts of goods and complained to the leader of the caravan. Chapter 198 Melon. The leader of the caravan did not dare to ignore the girl's complaint. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled carefully. "You are joking, sir. In the entire land of water, except for the city, where the daimyo is located, only the hidden mist village has the highest living standard. If these nearly 10 carts of goods are transported to nearby cities, I don't know how long it will take to sell them all. If we can't sell them within a certain time limit, resulting in a backlog of goods, we will lose money." Hearing this, Qishuang asked, "Can't these goods be stored for a long time?" "Only goods that cannot be stored for a long time will make these merchants afraid of backlogs, fearing that they will lose money in their hands." The leader of the caravan nodded and smiled flatteringly. "Your Excellency guessed correctly. Except for a very small number of these goods that can be stored for a while, the rest cannot be stored for a long time." Dong dong dong. Mediterumi knocked on the guardrail of the cart and asked curiously, "What is in this car? I seem to smell a faint fragrance." Because all the carts carrying goods were covered with thick canvas, she could not see what was inside. She only smelled a faint fragrance, which made her heart itch. Therefore, she was very curious about the true appearance of these goods. "It's fruit." Seeing her curiosity, the leader of the caravan quickly lifted a corner of the canvas pointed to the round light yellow things on the car, and explained diligently, "This is a kind of melon that is a specialty of our place. It has a crisp taste and a faint fragrance. Now, it's the season for melons to mature, and we heard that there seems to be some grand event to be held in the Hidden Mist Village, so we thought about transporting it to the Hidden Mist Village to make a fortune." Grand event? Qishuang was very confused after hearing this. Even though he was born in the Hidden Mist Village, he had never heard of any grand event. The boss of the caravan, who was thousands of miles away, actually boasted that there was a grand event in the Hidden Mist Village, which really made him depressed. Meditarumi, who was standing next to him, didn't pay much attention to it. Her attention was all attracted by the round melons. "Hey, boss, can you give us a taste of your melon?" She licked her lips and pointed at the melons on the car and asked. It was the first time for her to see these melons, and the faint fragrance made her stomach growl, so she really wanted to taste what they tasted like. "Of course, we won't eat yours for free, we will pay for it." She swallowed her saliva and added a sentence for fear that the boss would disagree. "No problem, no problem." Seeing her cute greedy look, the caravan leader was less afraid of her identity as a Miss Ninja. He immediately waved his hand and said nonchalantly, "You two adults can eat as much as you want. There are several carts of cantaloupes here. You can have as much as you want. You don't have to pay." "Really? Thank you so much." Meditarumi smiled, and the caravan leader was even more attracted to her. For a moment, he was so confused that he couldn't find the north. Seeing this, Qishuang, whose thoughts were interrupted, shook his head helplessly. As she grew older, Meditarumi gradually lost her girlish immaturity and became more mature and beautiful, more and more like the mature beauty in his memory. That is, he was in the same team and often met her, so he was immune to this kind of beauty. Others who met for the first time found it difficult to control themselves under this kind of beauty. Walking on the street, he often saw unlucky guys who were attracted by Meditarumi and accidentally bumped into the wall next to them. He didn't know how many times he had seen such a caravan leader. Then, he gently patted the caravan leader on the shoulder and asked with a smile, "How are you all preparing? If everything is ready, let's go." The caravan leader suddenly came to his senses after being patted by him. He subconsciously wiped the corner of his mouth and found that there was nothing. He was relieved. Then, he said to the young man respectfully, "Master Qishuang, before you arrived, we had prepared everything. We can set off at any time. Since everything is ready, let's set off." Qishuang waved his hand after glancing at the many small cars covered with canvas. "But, the two masters have just arrived and are tired from the journey. Don't you want to rest for a night before leaving?" the caravan leader asked tentatively. Fatigue on the road can easily make people's temper worse. He didn't want to cause any unpleasantness on the road because of the fatigue of the two. Although the melons need to be sent to the Hidden Mist Village for sale as soon as possible, he can still squeeze out a day of rest for the two. "No need." Qishuang waved his hand nonchalantly. They came all the way from the Hidden Mist Village. No one was bothered by them, except for their legs. Being a little sore, they didn't suffer any damage. "I see you have so many small carts carrying goods. I guess you can't move very fast. When the time comes, we can just find a car to lie on and rest while moving forward," he added. The caravan leader was still a little hesitant and looked at the other side, the girl holding a melon, with a questioning look in her eyes. Seeing this, Meditarumi replied nonchalantly, "Just listen to him. He has the final say." Originally, Qishuang took over the leadership of the team from the captain and had the right to make all decisions. In addition, her mind was completely attracted by the melon in her arms at the moment, and she was too lazy to care about these trivial matters, so she had no objection to Qishuang's decision. Seeing that the beautiful girl had no objection, the caravan leader couldn't refute the boy's opinion. He immediately said to the two of them, "In this case, I will go down and inform everyone to prepare to set off." Then, the caravan leader turned and left. Soon, all the personnel were ready, and the entire caravan left the town. Here, sitting in the slightly bumpy truck, Terumi Mei handed a piece of orange-yellow melon flesh to the boy lying on his back next to her. Qishuang took the cantaloupe handed over by Terumi Mei, sat up, sniffed the scent of the cantaloupe first, and then took a bite. How does it feel? Is it very sweet? Terumi Mei narrowed her beautiful eyes and asked happily. She had tasted it first, and the sweet taste surprised her. Well, it's okay. It's just too sweet. It's not good to eat too much. After swallowing the cantaloupe in her mouth, Qishuang nodded and replied very calmly. Seeing that his answer was so calm, and not surprised at all, Terumi Mei almost thought she had taken the wrong thing. She picked up another piece of cantaloupe, and took a bite, confirming that the sweet taste had not changed at all, and then she was sure that she had not taken the wrong thing. She didn't know that this melon was not much different from the hammy melon that Qishuang had seen in her previous life, so Qishuang didn't feel any surprise. Boom. As if the wheel of the car was hit by a stone, the cargo compartment shook violently, and the melon in Terumi Mei's hand almost fell out. It's all your fault. You insisted on sitting in a carriage. It's too uncomfortable to travel and rest at the same time. The girl held the melon in her hands tightly with both hands and complained in a low voice. Because they couldn't find an extra carriage, they could only make do with the caravan's truck. However, the round melon in the carriage looked cute at first, but when the two of them sat on it, it was a bit painful. Compared with the previous plot branches, this chapter and the next one are really hard for me to describe. It can barely be regarded as two chapters of daily life. There will be no such thing in the future, don't worry. Chapter 199 Convenience. Hearing this, Qishuang's face immediately darkened, and he tried to defend himself. Isn't this much better than walking by yourself? Just make do with it. As he said that, the carriage shook again without any warning, and he was so startled that he quickly held the guardrail beside him. Terumi, who was holding the melon in both hands and preparing to eat it, was caught off guard and the melon pulp was all over her face. Seeing the girl with a face full of melon juice staring at him with an unfriendly look, Qishuang scratched his head and replied embarrassedly, I think you'd better hold it with one hand next time you eat the melon. Haha. After that, he couldn't help laughing out loud. Terumi's pitiful face full of melon pulp was really funny. You're still laughing. It's all your fault. The girl was furious. She immediately reached out to his waist and pinched it with 2 fingers. She immediately clamped a piece of soft flesh. She made up her mind and twisted it clockwise. Qishuang was so painful that she grimaced and couldn't laugh anymore. It hurts. Let go. He hurriedly slapped the hand pinching his waist, but he couldn't knock it off. Are you still laughing? Terumi Mei asked with a raised eyebrow while pinching the soft flesh. At this moment, seeing the other party crying out in pain, she felt an indescribable satisfaction in her heart, as if she had even forgotten the melon pulp on her face. No more laughing. No more laughing. Qishuang waved her hands repeatedly and responded. Humph. Seeing that he gave in, Terumi Mei snorted coldly and slowly loosened her fingers. You are too cruel. You pinched me so hard. After lifting up her clothes, Qishuang immediately saw a patch of blue and red on her waist. That was caused by Terumi Mei's pinching just now. Who told you to laugh at me? The girl replied confidently while tidying up the melon pulp on her face. She didn't think she did anything wrong about what happened just now. It was all her own fault. Seeing that the girl had no regrets, Qishuang was helpless and could only gently rub the green and red soft flesh and cover it with clothes again. Here, Terumi cut the remaining half of the melon and handed another piece to Qishuang. The whole melon was not very big, but it was not small either. It weighed 5 or 6 pounds. She couldn't finish it in a short time. In addition, there was no refrigerator on the road. If it was left exposed like this, it would go bad in a short time. It would be the best choice to finish the cut melon as soon as possible. After taking the melon, Qishuang seemed to think of something and said with a smile, how about I change the way you eat it? Change the way you eat it? Terumi was a little surprised. Then, she moved his chakra to his palm and then transformed it into ice. A trace of cold air came out of his body and poured into the piece of melon in his hand. Now you try it again. He smiled and handed the melon back. Hiss, so cool. Taking the melon, Terumi Mei took a breath of cold air. Too cold? She was slightly stunned and then pointed a finger over. As a user of Ice Escape, his tolerance for low temperatures is naturally much higher than that of ordinary people. Perhaps the temperature that he feels is appropriate is a little too cold for others. Then, he pointed a finger at the melon and slightly dissipated some of the cold air. Now, he asked again. Terumi Meri took a bite and squinted and said, "It's still a little cold." After hearing this, Nanashi dissipated some of the cold air in the melon. Terumi Meri took another bite and smiled happily. "It's okay now." The icy and cool melon, combined with the crisp taste, is very pleasing. As she devoured the meal, she exclaimed, "Your ice escape is so convenient. We won't need a refrigerator at home in the future." Hearing this slightly envious tone, Qishuang replied with a wry smile, "I'm not a full-time refrigerator maker. How can I stay at home every day and use myself as a refrigerator? This kind of convenience is only used occasionally. In the future, when I'm old and no longer need to be on the front line, when I'm bored, maybe I will use my own ice escape instead of my own refrigerator." After saying that, he shook his head helplessly. "That's not bad." Terumi looked at the frozen cantaloupe in her hand and said with a smile, "In the future, you can open a cold drink shop and make cold drinks with ice escape to sell. Maybe you can make a lot of money." "That's a good idea." Qishuang nodded and thought, "However, our water country has a humid climate and cold drinks may not be very easy to sell. Maybe we can try the wind country. There are a lot of wind and sand there, the climate is dry, and there is a lack of water. Cold drinks should be hot selling products. Yes, yes, yes. We should go to the wind country." Terumi nodded repeatedly. Then, in the bumpy carriage, the two began to discuss how to make a living by using ice escape. I don't know how long it took. The tired two fell asleep unconsciously. When they woke up, it was completely dark, and the caravan was camping in an open space. Nearly 10 carriages full of goods formed a circle, and a huge bonfire was lit in the middle, illuminating the 5-meter radius red. Seeing them walk out of the carriage, the leader of the caravan came up and asked with a smile, "Did you two adults sleep well?" "Not well at all." Terumi frowned, rubbed her neck, and said with an unhappy face. Lying on the melon pile, she couldn't even straighten her waist. At this moment, her whole body was in pain. Seeing that the caravan leader was embarrassed, Qishuang immediately came to the rescue and said, "Is there anything to eat? We are a little hungry." He didn't know how long he had slept, and his stomach was growling with hunger. Hearing this, the caravan leader looked at him gratefully and nodded repeatedly. "Yes, yes, yes. We shot a deer earlier, and there is still a small part left to eat. If you don't mind, you two adults, just eat it." Then, he led the two to the campfire. Hearing the movement in the field, the guards who were taking a nap around opened their eyes slightly, and then found that it was the leader and a few people, and closed their eyes again. "Grilled venison?" Seeing the simple grill next to the campfire, Terumi Meri exclaimed, and then smiled, and said to Qishuang, "It seems that we are lucky." Faintly, she has already smelled the aroma of barbecue. "There is nothing for you to do here, you can go down and rest." Qishuang turned her head and sent the leader of the caravan away. "Yes." The leader nodded and responded, and then retreated. After carefully checking the venison on the grill, Qishuang used a kunai to cut off a large piece and put it on the plate of the girl next to him who was staring at her. While he was checking, Terumi Meri went to the caravan to find 2 clean plates. "Don't be so careful, right? They are just a group of ordinary people." Looking at the venison on the plate, Terumi Meri muttered softly, "It's always better to be careful." Qishuang shook her head. Although ninjas have extraordinary powers, they are just a group of mortals. Their lives are as fragile as those of ordinary people. Chapter 200 Refugees. With just some highly toxic drugs, an ordinary person can easily knock down a cage-level warrior. In the past battlefields, Qishuang had used poison many times to easily kill many difficult opponents. Being cautious is responsible for your own life. Then, he cut himself a piece of venison, took the plate, and slowly sat down on the haystack next to him. It should be left by other members of the caravan when they had dinner earlier. "How long do you think it will take us to return to the hidden mist village this time?" Sitting next to him, Terumi asked in a low voice, while tearing the roasted venison with her little hands. Qishuang glanced at the trucks around and said slowly, "These people's running speed is not as good as ours. Now they are carrying 10 trucks of goods, so their speed is extremely slow. When we came here, it took about 3 days. Comparing the current speed of the team with our previous speed, it will take at least 7 days for us to return to the Hidden Mist Village this time. That's if nothing goes wrong on the road. When they left the Hidden Mist Village earlier, there were 2 of them, and they brought nothing except their carry-on luggage. It was obvious that they didn't have much money. In addition, with their 4 head protectors as hidden mist ninjas, there were no blind guys who deliberately came up to cause trouble on the road. But now it's different. 10 trucks of goods are enough for some people to risk their lives to rob them. Bandits and vagrants are definitely inevitable. Estimating 7 days is a bit too optimistic. 7 days. I hope there won't be any trouble. Meditarumi sighed and then stuffed a small piece of shredded venison into her mouth. Those 2 slender hands were covered with grease, and they looked shiny in the light of the fire. Putting down the plate, Qishuang said helplessly, "Trouble has come." Just now, he heard several small footsteps approaching around the camp. After he said this, Terumi Mei also stopped what she was doing, shifted her attention away from the venison on the plate, and immediately noticed someone approaching. He threw a kunai casually, nailing it on the carriage, awakening a guard next to him. Qishuang slowly said, "Guests are coming. You guys hurry up and get ready." The guard who was suddenly awakened by him originally thought that the 2 bloodthirsty mist ninjas were going to kill him and was trembling with fear. After hearing this, he realized that it was the 2 mist ninjas who discovered that there was an enemy coming. He immediately shouted at the top of his voice, "Enemy attack." The loud voice immediately broke the silence of the camp, and the guards who were taking a nap opened their eyes, tightened their weapons, and took a defensive posture. In the entire caravan, in addition to Qishuang and the 2 mist ninjas responsible for escorting, the caravan was also equipped with nearly 10 guards. They also arranged sentries, but they didn't find the newcomers. It wasn't because they were incompetent. It was because the night was too dark. Without the campfire, visibility was less than 3 meters. Besides, the 5 senses of ninjas were much stronger than those of ordinary people. They couldn't blame them for not finding the newcomers in advance. "My lords, is there really an enemy attack?" The leader of the caravan woke up from his sleep and hurried to ask Qishuang and the others. While wiping the grease off her hands, Meditarumi stared at the edge of the camp and said slowly, "There are about 20 people outside, but I don't know if they are refugees or bandits." She didn't detect any chakra from those people, so she ruled out the possibility that they were rebel ninjas or wandering ninjas who came to rob. As the attackers approached the camp, the guards also heard the rustling footsteps. They clenched their weapons, swallowed their saliva, and stared at the dark night nervously, waiting to fight. Because there was no moon tonight, only scattered starlight, they couldn't see the situation around them clearly, so they didn't dare to act rashly, and could only defend passively. Rustle, rustle. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. Everyone held their breath and widened their eyes. Blurred figures gradually appeared in their eyes. When the group of people came closer, they found out by the light of the fire that they were startled by a group of refugees who were haggard, and looked like dead bodies. This made the nervous guards secretly relieved. They didn't care about refugees. They were much easier to deal with than bandits and robbers. "Please don't come any closer, or we will be rude," a guard shouted. Hearing this voice, the slowly approaching crowd suddenly stopped. "Sir, we haven't eaten for 2 days. Please give us some alms," one of the refugees begged bitterly. It was like a stone that caused 1,000 waves. As soon as the man's voice fell, countless voices followed and echoed, "Yes, give us some alms. Give us some alms." In an instant, countless voices formed a torrent, flooding over like an overwhelming force, and frightened several guards so much that they dared not speak again. Seeing the guards showing fear, the refugees plucked up their courage and took another step, slowly approaching the camp like a flood that was about to flood everything. "Stop, if you come one step closer, I will be rude," a guard shouted loudly with gritted teeth. After all, it was his own duties and the weapons in his hands that gave him courage and overwhelmed his fear of the number of refugees. Then, the other guards were also encouraged and quickly formed a defensive barrier outside the camp. Seeing this scene and the silver weapons in the hands of the guards, some people began to hesitate. The approaching wave of refugees was slightly curbed. At this moment, another voice was heard shouting, This bunch of damn bastards. They are unwilling to give us even a little bit of goods, even though they have 10 carts. We only need a little bit to survive, but they are unwilling to give us anything. It's so abominable. Since they won't give us anything, we'll take it ourselves. Charge. Then, several more voices echoed in the crowd. Charge. Charge. Hearing this highly inflammatory voice, the originally hesitant refugees suddenly showed the fierceness of hungry beasts. Like crazy, they rushed straight to the deafened line of the guards. My lord, please handle it. Seeing the refugees rioting, the leader of the caravan was so scared that his soul flew away, and he immediately cried and asked Qishuang and the others for help. Under normal circumstances, the threat of refugees is far less than that of bandits, but once they riot, they are a group of lunatics who don't know how to live or die. Like locusts, they will eat everything they can see. At the moment, the caravan's guards were no longer enough to deter the refugees. If they made any mistakes, the goods of the entire caravan would be destroyed by the refugees. He could only ask for help from the 2 adults from the hidden mist village. Okay, I got it. Qishuang glanced at him nonchalantly, and then instantly reached the edge of the camp. Ice escape. Ice wall. He stomped his foot lightly, and the ice attributed chakra spread into the air, immediately draining the surrounding mist, and then with the help of ice attributed chakra, he built a wall of ice under his feet. The refugees who were about to attack the guard line were completely blocked outside. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.